Thank you, Eric. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Rewind podcast. My name is Jack Packard, and I am here with Darren Mooney.
Hey, how are things?
And of course, the ever delightful, some call him a library of movie stars and their abs. I'm here with Frost.
Should that not have been Darren?
I think you're absolutely fabulous, Frost.
More like a brosure of celebrities and their abs. Yeah.
You were the one that was very, very excited to talk about movie stars in general, which I think is that's going to be a very interesting conversation as we talk today about Twisters and the absurdly handsome Glenn Powell. What a handsome man. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just wishing that was me, that hair was mine, but oh boy. What a man.
You've got movie star qualities to you, Jack. It's fine. Like, I genuinely think, and this is going to be the shallowest thing, and then the rest of the podcast will be up and praise, right? Great. His eyes are a little too close together, a little shrunken. It's like I went into Ark or Baldur's Gate 3. Great. Yeah. Everything's default, great, chiseled, sure. And then I just took the eye slider and went a little, and that's that. And that sets up for the rest of it, because I love him more in Twisters, even though he does come off as a bit of a prick. Within context, he's the good guy. I've been here. I'm from here. Yeah. I never left. This is for the people, And I don't know, this sort of golden retriever who's not really afraid to growl at you a little bit. I like that a lot more, because yesterday I'd seen Top Gun Maverick, right? By comparison, he is a bit more of like a just arrogant jock the whole time. And I think like Kilmer and even Tom Cruise played that a bit better in the first one. But I'm loving this angle of like just heart of gold, but he will like maybe squeeze your hand a little tight during the handshake, just so you know your place.
Absolutely. That's the thing about Powell, is that like Powell has this energy that is very different from what we conceive of modern movie stars having, where a lot of our movie stars are like soft boys, quote unquote. Think of like the Timothée Chalamet's, the Lucas Hedges, the A24 indie boys who are very delicate. They've got very soft features. Even somebody like Zac Efron, who like can bulk up to an emotionally crippled mini Hulk in the Iron Claw, still seems like he's a bundle of raw nerves who just wants a hug. I think Powell is interesting to Frost's point, because he feels like a throwback to a particularly kind of 80s kind of movie star. Again, you mentioned the eyes being a little bit too close together. They're also very narrow and almost reptilian in some ways. And this is not an insult, to be clear. It's that vibe that you have with actors. You mentioned Val Kilmer, you mentioned Tom Cruise, but a lot of these 80s stars who have this kind of ruthless quality to them, where they are just a little bit edgier, a little bit darker, a little bit more unseemly. At one extreme, you obviously have Michael Douglas, who is like the walking embodiment of cocaine. If cocaine had a face, it would be Michael Douglas's. And I love Michael Douglas, and I'm not insinuating anything about Michael Douglas. But you have this sense of like actors who are jerks. And you mention Powell and his performance, obviously, in Maverick, which I think is very good as Hangman, which plays off that energy. But even if you look at, say, his work in general, even if you go back to his smaller roles, where he has a small role in The Dark Knight Rises as stock trader number 2, that is just immediately, he's an extremely handsome man who is a bit of an asshole. And that kind of carries through, where you go to Everybody Wants Some, his breakout with Richard Linklater, where he is one of the jocks. He's not a nerd. He's not a sensitive type. He's not sitting on the porch reading poetry like a lot of modern male movie stars would be. He's hitting a baseball and saying crude things and pretending to be more successful than he actually is. But you jump forward to even his rom-coms, like Set It Up with Zoe Deutsch on Netflix, which is just a phenomenal rom-com, or Anyone But You, which I didn't like that much, but which was a massive breakout. In both of those movies, he's playing the jerk. He is a bit of a jerk. Now, as you said, he is eventually revealed, like he is in Twisters, to be a jerk with a heart of gold. He has this kind of like kernel of humanity nestled within him. But in these movies, when he's introduced, there's always that spark of conflict, always that sense of, is he arrogant or is he good? Like, this guy has an inflated opinion of himself. Is he actually aware of his own abilities, or is he a doofus? And I think the thing about Powell is he can play that very well, where he does seem arrogant and self-centered, but eventually reveals himself, as you said, to be the guy with the heart of gold. The I'm from here. Not to jump too far into spoiling Twisters, but even the way he's introduced as like the thrill-chasing YouTuber tornado wrangler who arrives blaring country music and tipping his cowboy hat. He's seen selling merchandise with his own face on it. And the reveal of the movie as it goes on is, actually, this guy is a sensitive soul. He has a degree in meteorology. He's like studied weather systems. He donates his earnings to charity. In his spare time, he looks for lost puppies. There is a real sense, I think that's key to Powell working as a movie star in a way that I don't think many of his contemporaries have, is that there's an edge to him. But there's also like a fundamental decency when you just scratch the surface of it. I like
that you imply, by the way, that Twisters is complicated enough to spoil in any regards, because like, by the way, if you've seen a movie before, you know how Twisters is going to end.
Shock! It's actually a hurricane. The big twist in Twisters.
Yeah, absolutely.
To that setup though, I don't know if you picked up on this or not. It might not be like, I live in Oklahoma where it was all shot and where it's all happening. He said bunch of YouTube pricks from Arkansas. Like we kind of don't like each other, right? This is like other state. If someone's driving on the road recklessly, it's like, what are you from? Texas, Arkansas? Like, what are you doing here? So even though sure, like the New York elites coming down,
city girl,
the Midwest, city girl.
Yeah.
He himself is also not immediately likable if you are from Oklahoma, where he says, where you're from, city girl. His first response should have been not with that accent, because she does not sound like she's from New York anyway whatsoever.
The best part is she's a British actor as well. She's a British actor putting on an Oklahoman accent, and his first response is, "You're obviously a New Yorker." I pegged you immediately. But I actually do like, culturally speaking, the way they've set him up to be a bit of a prick. It is so much conflict, whereas Arkansas, Oklahoma, but then also the idea of Southern Midwestern pride. He comes off as a bit of like older, like metrosexual, very, you just like playing cowboy, right? So like, even from the start, there's so many angles to dislike this guy. And then, as you said, he's saving puppies on his free time. What am I supposed to do? He's respecting boundaries. Come on. Yeah. There's a moment where she comes downstairs and finds him reading her postdoctoral research with intense scrutiny, and he's like, "Don't worry, I have the scientific formula to prove this." As he looks at the cameras and to say, "Not just a pretty face, baby. I'm more than just a hunk of meat. Stop objectifying me. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to put on my
hunk of meat,
to put on my white T-shirt and walk through the rain while looking forlorn."
That's right. You thought the female lead wearing the white tank top was the homage to Helen Hunt. Oh no, it's me.
I'm Helen Hunt.
I'm Helen Hunt in this.
I love it.
And so I guess, like, obviously, so by the way, everybody, this is going to be a little bit Twisters and a little bit just kind of like movie stars in general talk. We're going to use Twisters as a vehicle to talk about movie stars and, where they are now. Movie stars aren't what they once were. They have you can't just sell a movie with a star's name attached anymore. You can barely sell a movie with an IP attached anymore. To be quite fair, and that's the Marvel machine might have been one of the things that helped kill the movie star, quote unquote. That's my very dramatic headline, because it was more important to them that the character be the front runner, not necessarily a movie star, except for, of course, Robert Downey Jr. But even him, he's going back to Iron Man now, and so Glenn Powell. Oh, sorry. Well, and this will just jump us onto something. Yeah. Glenn Powell as a movie star, where do you think his trajectory is going from here?
Now, if you had to sort of put him into a type of movie star, because, there's different ones, who would you say he more closely resembles? I think that'd be an easy-ish segue. Because to me, he's not hit Cruise yet. He's not. I see him closer to Kilmer than Cruise. Just ever so slightly. Definitely not Jack Nicholson, as I was getting at, that like unhinged energy. Oh God, I almost see him like he's doing what The Rock should have done, right? I think he's following very similar trajectory as The Rock, but in actually like better roles, more suited for him, a better alignment of co-stars.
Sure.
It's almost like he is making his own path, but it is going through where The Rock kind of dropped off.
I think the thing with The Rock, though, was The Rock was very clearly following the Stallone-Schwarzenegger playbook, where it was like, you are this muscle-bound guy, so what you do immediately is you, A, find yourself auteur directors to attach yourself to, like Schwarzenegger did with Cameron. Like Schwarzenegger works with Cameron, and he has this. Glenn Powell is the name of the actor, Eric. Sorry, but you have Schwarzenegger attached himself to like Cameron. He works with Reitman. He works with directors who have very strong styles. He does McTiernan. Like the great story about Predator is like Schwarzenegger is the only person in the world who watches McTiernan's first movie, which is Nomads, in which we're talking about accents. Pierce Brosnan does a French accent, and it is one of the most incredible things I have ever heard. Not in a good way, but like
right.
Nobody watched that movie and said that guy is going to be one of the most important action directors of the next 10 years, except for Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's like, he should make a movie where I go into the jungle and kill an alien, and you end up with Predator. But the thing with Schwarzenegger then also figures out, like, okay, I've done R-rated movies, so I've attracted a largely male audience, adolescent, getting older. I need to branch out. I need to attract a family audience. So I will make something like Twins that will attract like a broader demographic. Women will go and see Twins, for example. Couples on date nights will go and see Twins that wouldn't go and see, like Red Heat or Conan or whatever it was. And then after a little while, he's like, you know what? Those couples who went some fantastic work from Eric. He's just off the chain here.
He's too good, too fast.
Too fast. But then Schwarzenegger's like, okay, those couples who went to see me as a movie star in those films, they're now having kids. I need to make movies that will appeal to families. So the first thing he does is he starts making softer R-rated movies like Terminator 2, Judgment Day, where suddenly he's no longer the villain, he's the hero, but he also has an adorable kid sidekick that allows like kids into an R-rated movie. He also does like Last Action Hero, which I don't know if that's or PG-13, but that's more clearly skewing towards I want to be a 4 demographic hit. And then he just does like straight up Jingle All the Way, and which basically is now I am a family star. And that is what The Rock was trying to do. And you can look and you can see as The Rock goes along, you can see him doing this, where things like his Hercules with Brett Ratner is an attempt to do Conan. He tries to do Southland Tales is his attempt to do Terminator. The Tooth Fairy is his attempt to do a kindergarten cop. And none of those land in any way, shape, or form. So The Rock just immediately retreats back to, okay, I will just make one kind of movie with maybe like 3 different rotating directors. Like Wom Colessera is going to be my guy on the phone. And no matter what I do, I will just slot into this. We're talking about things like, say, Skyscraper. Even Black Adam fits into that template as well.
Sure.
Like Rampage, all these sorts of movies, which are incredibly generic and forgettable. And I think that's the playbook that The Rock was following, and I don't think it worked for him. I think if you're looking at like a modern version of that, I think like Dave Bautista is doing a much better version of that.
Oh, that's a good one.
Like where Bautista
but of course, Bautista is reaching out to even more, auteurs. He is really like hammering hard this like boutique actor thing while still doing the schlock every once in a while. Is he in My Spy 2 as well?
Yes, he is. Yes, he's back, baby.
He's back.
Even Bautista has mortgage payments. But I'm like, and to be honest, the key is just to give Bautista tiny glasses. You can tell how good a movie's going to be is inversely proportional to the size of the glasses that Bautista is wearing. That's
I think
the rule.
like Glenn Powell looks to be, in my opinion, he is more following kind of the Bruce Willis vibe, where he's doing some rom-coms, he's doing some light action. He is like, because that's what Bruce Willis was back in the day when he started doing like his Die Hards. He was like, a little not right, but just right for the part. Am I right, girls?
And the thing about Willis though is that Willis starts out in comedies on TV. He does Moonlighting, and there's this real soul searching of like when he does Die Hard, everybody's like, there's no way to take Bruce Willis seriously as an action star. And then obviously that becomes the one thing that he does, and he almost kind of gets trapped by it, where he has to go and he has to do things like Pulp Fiction to help kind of break out of that and prove I'm an indie guy. He does like The Sixth Sense. He does Breakfast of Champions to prove no, I'm still credible. Like Death Becomes Her, the Zemeckis movie. Like where he's playing against type by playing the kind of character he would have played like 5 years earlier, which is just an incredible transformation. The thing with Powell, which I find interesting, is like my take on the movie star is quite simple. In order to be a movie star, you have to be able to attract audiences to movies that they would not otherwise see. You are not a movie star if you can't open a movie. If you can't convince audiences to go and see a movie based on your name largely as a gesture of trust. So The Fall Guy is proof that Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, who I love and are great actors, are not movie stars. And like, I think Reynolds, you can see that borne out. Yeah, that's sorry.
That's Ryan Reynolds, wasn't it? Fall Guy.
No, Gosling.
That's Gosling. Yeah. Ryan Reynolds was in that If movie that came out recently.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
They all blend together.
They do. They all kind of blur. And like the John Krasinski does Spielberg and accidentally makes Hook 2 is basically what If is. But the thing with like movie stars is that in order to get there, you need to court your audience in the way that Schwarzenegger did, where you have to have a base. You have to build. This sounds very cynical and political, but you do have to have a base. You have to build it out and expand.
No one will fault you.
He was also the governor of California. He's good at politics.
He's married, and he was a Republican governor married to the Kennedy family. That's how good he is at politics. Until one day the maid brought a child to work who looked a little bit too much like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but we don't have time to get into that. Yeah. I'm not sure I can get away with saying more in a recorded medium. But you with movie stars though, like to pick the example, like Cruise, right? You look at Cruise as a movie star and you immediately think like Top Gun, you think maybe Days of Thunder, you think Mission Impossible, right? And those are good examples, right? Because those are big movie star movies. They're blockbuster hits. But in order to become that kind of breakout star, Cruise has to make smaller movies that win over different demographics. So he has to make, for example, Cocktail. He has to make Risky Business. He has to make Rain Man. He has to make Born on the 4th of July. He has to make, God damn it, he has to make Far and Away in order to like win over audiences and to prove that he's an actor that when you see him in a project, you know that the project is going to be, to a certain extent, have a certain patina of quality around it.
Sure.
And it means that you trust him. And when he does something, you don't think, well, I don't normally like those kinds of movies, or that's not really my genre, or I'm not really familiar with the brand, or the director is not a proven track record to me. You go, Cruise's name is above the title. I'm going to take a gamble on this. And Law of Averages says it's going to be at least as entertaining as, say, The Firm, right? And the problem, I think, in building movie stars today is simply that, like, you just try to make Top Gun and Mission Impossible. You don't make Rain Man anymore. You don't make Born on the 4th of July. You don't make Cocktail. You don't make Risky Business. You don't make Legend even anymore. And so it's very hard to like build out a star. Like the thing about Powell is Powell has been around for over a decade now. I think he's pushing 36, 37. Like
35,
he is, 35. Wow. He's on the edge of like what a movie star can be to land, right?
Yeah.
You need movie stars who are young and vital. Powell is about my age, and Powell obviously doesn't look about my age, to his credit. I look like I'm at least two Glenn Powell's old. But like you need younger and more vital stars. And I think like the thing with Powell is it shouldn't have taken him this long to get to where he is now. He shouldn't have had to take the route of going through the Netflix movies to get here. He shouldn't have had to wait for people to discover Set It Up. He shouldn't have had to wait for people to discover, Everybody Wants Some. He shouldn't have had to wait to be the fourth lead in Top Gun Maverick before somebody took a chance and rolled a dice and was like, you're the lead of Twisters. I think that's where the industry's broken. Sorry, that was my long ramble. I apologize.
Industry owner. And you left out Spy Kids 3D. When he first showed up with his little like black and silver suit and he's been a little snot-nosed brat. That's why he's got the DiCaprio thing for me, that the first time I see them, if they're insufferable, essentially children, I can't unsee that. DiCaprio to me now is still Jack crying on the ship. Glenn Powell to me now, when he's being a little snooty, I still see him in Spy Kids 3D. So that's why I'm like, it's nice to see you like just being, I guess, nice. Not everyone has to be nice, but I can't see you being mean because you're just juvenile when you do with your little eyes.
Because you're just a snot-nosed kid from Spy Kids 3D. And so, and let's go ahead, Frost.
No, I was saying, but to that thing, even as Darren was saying, auteur directors, like, Robert Rodriguez is definitely known as one of the more old school ones. He's following, alongside Antonio Banderas, if anything, might even just ends up under some auteur directors sort of ensemble wing, right? Mm-hmm. Attaching yourself to like the people that always show up with Tarantino, the people that always show up with Nolan. So surely someone's gonna grab Powell and be like, "This one's mine."
Well, Cruise has. I know Cruise is not an auteur, but like Cruise has been like he is the new incarnation of the spirit of Tom Cruise. Like there's a sequence where Cruise goes to the Twisters premiere, and look, to be clear, we know why Cruise loves Twisters. Twisters is a movie that has a third act that includes the lines, and I kid you not, A, we have to get everybody into the movie theater. B, this theater's not built to withstand what's coming. And C, features a sequence in which a tornado rips the screen out of a theater and Glenn Powell literally saves cinema. So that is why Tom Cruise loves this movie, to be clear. But like, there's a moment where they're doing the press tour and Cruise has to teach Powell how to hold a popcorn bucket to the camera. They're posing with their popcorn and Cruise is just instinctively, you put the Twisters logo facing the camera and you hold it so it's in shot. And Powell is like, I don't know, what do you do? What's going on here? And Cruise is like, if you're going to be a movie star, you need to, this is essential.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that paid off.
No,
Like,
and that's
the Budweiser drinking always.
of course. Well, and
Right,
you know,
absolutely.
like obviously think about Tom Cruise what you want. As you know, he has been a movie star and you know, like a champion of the movies as a not just an industry, movies as a concept for, you know, as long as he has been a movie star. When he tells you to do something, you just listen and try your damn best, Glenn Powell.
You know the 6-hour movie school thing, right? You guys heard about the 6-hour movie school, right?
I don't know if I have.
Okay, so Powell gets an invitation.
yeah.
Powell gets an invitation from Cruise to come and talk about movies. Cruise is going to teach Powell everything that he knows about movies. And Powell, you know, hops on a jet. He flies over. He's like, obviously, Cruise is doing this for like all the guys on Top Gun. Like Miles Teller is going to be here, for example.
Sure.
Manny Jacinto is going to be here. We're all going to arrive. It's going to be a good reunion. There's going to be a little talk. We're going to shake hands. Cruise is going to give a little presentation. He arrives. It's a big empty like warehouse, basically. Nobody else is there. Somebody, a staff member, comes along and says, "Oh, Mr. Powell, you've arrived," and guides him into a theater where he is the only person in the theater. He is shown to a seat in the center of the theater. The person leaves the room, the lights go down, the screen turns on, and there is like a 60-foot Tom Cruise, and he delivers a 6-hour presentation on everything that you think you need to know in order to be a movie star via like IMAX screen to an audience of Glenn Powell. It's incredible. Yeah, that may be a linking factor, Eric. I can't say the name out loud because I'm sure we'll get tagged, but that may be a linking factor.
I want to see that. What do I need to do?
Yeah, that's what I want.
To get enrolled in the Tom Cruise movie school.
What ideology do I need to pretend to hold to get that presentation? Because I would love that.
Two things I want, and that's Tom Cruise's 6-hour How to Be a Movie Star presentation, and Christopher Nolan's first film that he put at Cannes, and everyone's like, "It's the greatest thing ever," but we don't have a copy. Sorry.
Larceny.
That's true.
We're gonna larceny.
We're gonna larceny. No, but I mean, it is important, and so like my question is extrapolating this data. Let's see if we can do the unthinkable, which is predictions, right? Yeah. Like we know, like according to IMDb, Powell is in production and pre-production for a couple movies. He is. I don't want him to be in this movie, but apparently he is attached to the Running Man remake.
Wow.
I don't know if that's a smart choice, you know, two high profile remakes, but a Monsanto movie, Chad Powers, I have no idea what that is, and Huntington, which is the only one currently in production.
Chad Powers is a TV show where he stars as Chad Powers, which seems unlikely to happen if he wants to be a movie star.
Right.
Oh, it looks like it could be a prestige show. So it co-stars Steve Zahn. It's the story of a disgraced college quarterback named Russ Holliday who disguises himself as Chad Powers and walks into a struggling Southern football team to revive his football career.
Oh.
Interesting.
All right. That's fine. Let's see here.
I'm looking at it. Has 4 cast members in total. I don't know that this is ever happening.
The one in production is called Huntington by the director of Emily the Criminal.
Oh, good.
Right. And it's just about a young man hatches a murderous plot to inherit his family's wealth. Oh, I'm down.
Classic.
I mean, now we're getting into the problem that like the movies that make movie stars don't really exist anymore. Like if Powell wants to star in anything other than a franchise reboot or a big budget summer blockbuster, he basically has to go and make an A24 movie. And I don't know that Powell is a good fit for like Long Legsier, you know?
No, Long Legsier. I mean, I would be there on opening day to watch Long Legsier. Because you just put them in the same makeup they put Cage in, and you're good to go. Yeah. That being said, like because they don't make non-IP movies anymore. Like A24 has become its own IP. Neon has become its own intellectual property house. Where does someone like Glenn Powell go to get to that level? Is it back to Netflix? Is it a prestige show on Netflix? Can you anymore?
Yeah.
Oh man,
Can you get
that's
the
a good one.
traction? Yeah. Well, I mean, like you mentioned the MCU, none of the Marvel stars can. You mentioned like Robert Downey Jr. and Robert Downey Jr. who takes a lion's share of like the budgets of these movies. But outside of the MCU, what has he done? He's done the Sherlock franchise with Guy Ritchie, but that's a separate franchise. He's done Dolittle, which bombed, The Judge, which
Dolittle.
basically does not exist. He was the new again, Chef, Jon Favreau's Chef, which is a weird touchstone, I think, for our discussions.
Is he in that?
In which Jon Favreau, yeah, he's the guy who's married to Sofia Vergara, who is Jon Favreau's ex-wife. But it's okay because Jon Favreau ends up with Scarlett Johansson. By the way, this movie is written and directed by Jon Favreau.
Jon Favreau.
Yeah, like living your dream. I kind of like that those are Jon Favreau's dreams, where it's like Disney. I gave you the MCU. I directed $1 billion Lion King movie. And Disney are like, what do you want, John? And it's like, want to make a movie?
Cook with John Leguizamo.
Yeah.
You know he was no John. Put me in the Avengers. I could be an Avenger.
Luigi can join the Avengers, right?
Yes, 100%.
But like Downey Jr. outside of Marvel hasn't made a great deal of money. Like Chris Evans has tried and repeatedly failed to launch with movies like The Iceman, for example. But even something like, say, the TV shows, like Chris Evans has done TV shows for Apple TV which don't exist at all. And even somebody like Hemsworth. Hemsworth, of all the Marvel guys, Hemsworth is the one I respect because Hemsworth is the one who's gone and done the can I do the classic movie star thing of I have opened movies that have grossed almost $1 billion. I'm a recognizable face. People know my name. Can I use that to get movies made by directors whose work I like, which is the classic Cruise thing. Cruise, again, does it in the 90s when he gets Brian De Palma to direct Mission Impossible, John Woo to direct Mission Impossible 2. He basically bankrolls like Stanley Kubrick's final movie, the weird erotic thriller stuff. And he works with, obviously, Paul Thomas Anderson on Magnolia. He, like, in the 90s, Cruise is like, can I use my movie star power to get like these movies by directors I care about made? And Hemsworth is the one guy of the Marvel crowd who has done that. It's like, I have the juice of being Thor. Can I get like a Michael Mann hacker movie financed, made, released, and distributed? And it's like, no, you can't, Chris. $8 million in total at the box office. Yeah. For a well-reviewed movie from one of the best directors working today. You have like he does it with Furiosa as well, where like that is a role where you can tell Hemsworth is like just, you know, I want to be taken seriously as an actor. I want to push this boulder uphill. I am probably a large part of why Warners are funding this. But again, nobody turns out to see it. And like that's the thing, like these movies, you don't make stars anymore, and the problem, the consequence of that is that people don't go and see these good movies because they don't have anyone to guide them. They don't have the stars to follow, you know?
Oh, that's so poetic, Darren. How sad. How sad and poetic. But you know, like because you know, and I think this is a very purposeful consequence of the studios trying to remove that star power. The studios wanted the power, right? We will be the arbiters of good taste. Don't trust the stars, trust Marvel. Don't trust the stars, trust Star Wars. Trust you know, Disney or whomever is making. We can steer the ship, and they all steered it to streaming. And now everyone is desperately trying to backpedal.
They are and they aren't, in the sense that like the studios, the recent actors strike was largely around the idea that studios could just like scan you and you would own your likeness in perpetuity forever, which is like the very definition of like, we like movie stars. We just don't like the people that those movie stars actually are. Imagine if you could have stars, but you didn't have to deal with human beings. That would be just, what if they could just generate profit for you? What if Marlon Brando could be in Avengers 6? Sorry.
So like imagine Sean Penn without the felonies. You know, some executive was like, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think like part of the corporations or the studios, you know, very purposefully removing that element is now biting them in the ass. You know, Anya Taylor-Joy, who I would consider to be a movie star. Theoretically, I don't know if she's up there, but like you talked about with Furiosa, where it's like, We have two big names, a big name director and a franchise, and we still can't make this thing get off the ground. It's critically praised. Everybody who sees it likes it. No one wants to see it in a movie theater. They're just going to wait till video on demand.
But, I mean, that's the other thing too, getting people to the movie theaters. So you got one corporates, executives, whatever, taking away the movie star power. And then the other thing is like filling seats, right? Because maybe they do make a movie that people go, oh, I can't wait for that to get on streaming. But you're not filling seats in that way. Yeah. So he's pretty smart in attaching himself to the ones that he has so far. Top Gun, Twisters as well. I've said that the movies now that get me to the theater are the ones that go, I need that big screen. I bought the 4D seat because like I wanted to see what Twisters felt like. We'll talk about that later. That was a weird. There's a shitty massage chair is what it was.
No, that's what I want to hear about right now. Wait, what was the 4D?
All right.
Did they spray water on you?
No, I hope not. If it was like the guy sneezing behind me at the most inopportune time.
Twisters had a 4D experience?
Yeah, they have a 4D experience, and because I was looking for a ticket, as you said, like, can you hop on? I was like, all right, let's go fresh. It was either going to be yesterday or 9 a.m. today, which is 3 hours before this goes. 4D. Yeah. It's called the D box, and I was like, what is this thing? I've never heard of this thing. I thought it was. This is going to sound weird.
D-Box sounds like something you find in a men's room that you never open.
Yeah. Like the D-Box, and this is going to sound like insensitive, but it's just more to show my ignorance. I thought it was those seats for like the hard of hearing.
Sure.
And I was like, is that what that is? And it's like, no, this is like it shakes you, it does 4D and whatnot. I was like, okay, cool, get in there. And it's a massage chair with 3 settings. It's a really weird setup here. It isn't, and it'll tilt you as things are happening. It'll tilt you and it'll shake. Those are the two things it does. Tilts you and shakes you. And if you guys have seen this movie, there's a lot of driving. Yeah. Sometimes you're going from one truck to the other. So you're like, first you're tilting in the other one, and then the other one comes through, and you're another one, super jerky, hella strangely responsive. But the worst part of it all is it's definitely not designed for these chairs because you never know who you're supposed to be. Because sometimes the trucks are going. It's like, all right, cool. I'm in this, but then the drone's in the air, and I'm like, well, hold on, I'm the drone now. There was a weird moment at the start. I don't know if you guys remember this, where they're like, be gentle with Dorothy, right?
Yeah.
And he smacks
that one legacy character, Yeah,
he smacks it, and then the seat went Bert on my left butt cheek. I was like, what?
You're Dorothy.
How did that help immerse you into the movie, being the bucket full of little balls?
It did not. No. Some scenes are great, like when you're like in the middle of the tornado, right? And nothing's moving, and you're just there. I'm like, oh, cool. And then other times it's like they're just talking, and cars are going by on the highway, and the seat just kind of goes Bert, Bert.
I would love if anyone out there knows a person who does the programming for the 4D experience. That will be a 4-hour interview because I want to know exactly what they try to do to accomplish this immersive feeling. Because that sounds.
I'll be honest.
I love the idea of like Denis Villeneuve or like Lee Isaac Chung in this case, sitting down in the chair and going, "No, my left ass cheek needs to feel more."
See, I don't think it was programmed by humans. I think it's some sort of software. I do think it's AI. It would correlate with the fact that at the start of it, 30 minutes of trailers, and it was either Jesus or AI. The two things I love more in this world is Jesus and AI. I don't think that the director at any point went, when he smacks Dorothy, give me a good in the left cheek, right?
Like that had to be a human. A human had to make that decision, right? Of like
you'd think human would override that decision. I think at a certain amount of like volume, this chair's just meant to go.
Oh, like they just hook it up to the waveform of the movie.
Yeah, I do think so.
Sure.
Yeah. At a certain volume, it's just meant to go for you. The tilting, I don't think you can do this casually. I'll be honest, especially with those trucks, because if you've ever been in a car, you feel the force, right, of the turn and the speed and all that. It's very different from just your chair just going, have one of these,
Yeah.
just a different experience. All in all, I love the novelty of it. I almost couldn't stop laughing. Like people are dying, and I'm just here like, oh my god, this chair.
And what was what was the price difference between like that and a regular theater ticket?
I think it was just $5 more. Yeah, I think a normal seat was like $6, and one of these was 10.
Okay.
I had like the whole theater to myself. It was great.
Well, of course, yeah, you go on a Tuesday morning, yeah.
Go on a Tuesday morning to the D box, yeah.
To the D,
to the D box. I'm out here D-boxing right now.
That's like your friend from middle school. Your friend from middle school who thinks that they're very good with the ladies. Yeah, that's right. They call me the D box. No one calls you that, Tony. Yeah,
they will. I do think that would be more suitable to what I think Universal Studios tries to do, where they like lock you into the seat because we're about to shake the shit out of you. And sign this waiver, please. This was just a massage chair that I got off Craigslist for $50, provided I picked it up. Like it was not that good, but it was a fun experience.
Oh, good.
I saw Dune 2 in 4D, and I will say, like, the bits that were most interesting, the bits that were most satisfying, were like the subtle bits where the chair would lean back as the camera would pan up. So it was like you were peering through a window, or like as the camera go over the dunes, you turn slightly left or slightly right. Like that stuff was much more interesting to me than Dave Bautista has arrived. Enjoy the smell of gasoline in your nostrils.
Yeah. That's about right.
I will say one advantage of Dune is that it wasn't very wet. Yeah, it wasn't very wet, so I didn't get sprayed in the face. Which I went to see. Is it The Predator, the Shane Black Predator movie, in 4DX because it was the only screening that was on in the time window that I had. And I will say that was a keep your mouth closed screening because you were just constantly being sprayed with whatever. Like it was like, I don't think this is sanitized. I don't know that this is like. I don't trust the cinema that I'm in. Not to, like. To be putting water in my orifice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I didn't get one of those small ones. Would have been grand for Avatar, right? You could actually like feel James Cameron taking the money out of your wallet as you're watching it.
The magic fingers coming in.
As a concept, we've got a long way to go. I definitely recommend it for someone. Maybe choose, I don't know, a better movie when the next Fast and Furious, perhaps.
Our producer Eric has brought up a potential movie star initiative that I actually, if we're going to use, Darren, I really like your definition of movie star as someone who is able to get you to watch something that you wouldn't normally watch. And so Eric is putting out there Margot Robbie.
I think she's certainly in conversation. And the thing about Robbie, which is interesting, is she's moving more towards producing, which is very interesting. Where like she stars in Barbie, which is the biggest movie of last year. And that's the thing, like people are like, Gosling was in Barbie, so surely he's a movie star. And it's like, no, he was the second lead. He is a supporting actor. It was Margot Robbie all over the press. It was Margot Robbie in all the photo shoots. The posters with Gosling were like, literally, he's just Ken. The joke was how inessential he was to it. Whereas I think Robbie is probably a contender. Although again, you don't really have that pool of like material that you can do. And the thing with Robbie, which I find really interesting, is to get back to like one of the rights of the movie star. One of the rights of the movie star is that you put them in a movie with an older movie star and they hold their own. Like Frost mentioned Jack Nicholson. Like with Tom Cruise, you put Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson together in A Few Good Men. And if Cruise can hold his own in those scenes, he's a movie star. That sort of thing. You put Brad Pitt in Seven with Morgan Freeman. And if Brad Pitt can hold his own in those scenes, he's a movie star. And Robbie kind of has that with Will Smith in Focus and arguably The Suicide Squad, one of the strangest duologies two movie stars have ever made together, where they they're working at Warner Brothers, they clearly enjoy each other's company, they make Focus, and then they're like, you know what we're gonna do? David Ayer's Suicide Squad. That sounds like a fun time for everybody involved. Only the second most insane movie-related decision Will Smith has made in the past decade. But yeah, it is I think Robbie is a contender. Again, I do think we run into the problem of do they make the fully diverse array of films that would support a movie star? I think Robbie maybe has an advantage in that like she has a built-in like strong female audience, so she doesn't need say a rom-com in the same way that Powell might need a rom-com. You know, because you have like she's a very female-coded movie star. Barbie's a very female-coded movie. She has Harley Quinn in the back pocket already, so she has those two demographics. Barbie is kind of a kids movie, I guess. Probably as close as we're gonna get.
I think there's unfortunately the things that would have made her stand out in the movie star realm were also it's corrupted data, right? Because it's data that happened during or right post pandemic, where you have many movies that were coming out that were starring her that did not perform well. But was that her fault? Was that just global audience's fault? Like data is corrupted everywhere, but the Suicide Squad didn't perform very well.
Yeah.
Babylon was a big old bomb.
Big miss, yeah.
And
which literally sent Damien Chazelle to movie jail, by the way. I love that Damien Chazelle followed Babylon by being, no, my next movie is about jail. I'm technically in movie jail.
This counts. This counts as movie jail.
This counts as movie jail. It's a movie and there's jail.
Yes. And of course, the fantabulous the Birds of Prey, the title that's too long, right? Where it's just like
the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinzel, right? Yeah.
That's right. The Birds of Prey movie, which like fine movies. I didn't see Babylon, but like Harley Quinn, the Suicide Squad, like all fine movies. But we're in this wibbly wobbly period where I think those would have been the things. Like if her Harley Quinn movie could have brought people out as compared to her Suicide Squad movie, that would have cemented her as the movie star. Barbie is still wrapped up in this property. We also have a prestige director. So it's all, she's in my opinion, she would be in the gray zone if I'm doing the math correctly.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do think, though, the thing about Barbie is that she produced it as well. That's why I'm kind of more interested in Robbie as a producer. I think as going forward, I think Robbie is aware of the fact that there are no more movie stars, and she's like, my smart bet. No, my smart bet is to put my name behind movies like Saltburn, right? Obviously, now we think of Saltburn as the movie where Barry Keoghan dances to murder on the dance floor, having after just committed a bunch of murders, because it's subtle like that. You see, that's the thematic point the movie is trying to make. Yeah. But that is produced by Robbie. That one of the big selling points before it came out was that it was produced by Robbie. And Barbie was a project that she pushed uphill herself. She was she picked Gerwig to direct it. I do think that Robbie is smart and understands that that I'm never going to be a Tom Cruise or a DiCaprio or a Denzel, who I think are maybe our last three standing movie stars.
Oh man.
Yeah, sorry, we haven't even touched Denzel yet.
Oh man,
Denzel could just pop up and be like, "I'm gonna go to Italy with my good friend David Ayer, and we're gonna make the Threequalizer, and it's gonna make $100 million." And they're like, "What's the plot?" Well, I told you, I'm gonna go to Italy with my good friend David Ayer, and they're like, "Okay, $100 million, sure."
And they all said, "Hell yes." You wanna be in the new Gladiator? Hell yes, you go do that.
The first Equalizer made something like $101 million. The second Equalizer made $102 million. It's remarkable how consistent Denzel is.
And so maybe what the lesson Glenn Powell needs to learn here, or any future. Thank you, Eric. There's Denzel and Gladiator.
Just love how much fun he seems. Even in the trailer, it's just great to see him having fun. I'm happy to see Denzel having a good time. Yeah.
But perhaps then Margot is blazing the new trail for the movie star, which is basically taking that control back from the studios. Is no. I will now be behind the scenes. I will push for my own projects. Right. And Glenn Powell needs to get on that. Hold on, I'm trying to remember his. What was the rom-com where
Set It Up or Anyone But You?
Anyone but
you. Yeah.
I'm going to make the Anyone But You universe real.
Anyone But Universe. That's the pitch here. But that's the thing, is they're making a sequel to Anyone But You. And the solution, the problem is you don't make that's not how you do it. How many great rom-com sequels can you think of? The way that you make a follow-up to a rom-com is you do what, say, Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks did. You just make a different rom-com with the two of you together. You follow up Sleepless in Seattle with You've Got Mail. Or you do what Richard Gere and Julia Roberts did, which is you follow Pretty Woman with Runaway Bride. You basically say, look, the appeal here is these two movie stars sharing a screen. Everything else is incidental. We'll just change it up. Because the end of a rom-com is the two leads get together and live happily ever after. There is no way to make a sequel to that is in any way. What are you going to do? Break them up and have them get back together? Like it's a narrative problem that exists with the Star Wars sequels and all sorts of franchise sequels, which is we gave these characters happy endings. Now we have to break it up so they can have an adventure. But with a rom-com, it's particularly pointed because the ending is they're together, and the only way not to have them together is to have them like hate each other's guts. And it's like that is a very hard sell for a rom-com sequel, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
To that point.
Oh yeah.
Have we hit the cap that a movie star can hit? Because even the ones that I enjoy nowadays, I find them comparable to, I guess, almost what would be considered almost like B tier celebrities from back in the day. Like I go, oh, Jesse Plemons, I love everything that he has. He has those qualities you say of like can get me into movies where I go, I don't know about that one, but oh, he's in it. I just have to. But to me, he's more of like, oh, I really miss Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah.
You know? Miles Teller is almost like Jake Gyllenhaal Part 2, right? Even Emma Stone, I find her more like Miss Tilda Swinton, right?
Yeah.
That sort of role that she's filling in here, and like I guess it's giving them longer tails, if anything. Like, it almost felt like in the 90s, 80s, those stars were very boom or bust, right? Jean-Claude Van Damme, who the hell is that nowadays, right? But back then he was hot, absolutely hot. Same thing with even Antonio Banderas, where it's just like almost the stars could die out. As much as they could rise up, they could die out. Now it's more like we don't shine as bright, but we shine for much longer, much stabler in a sort of way.
But Frost, that like gets at something I do find interesting about the evolution of the movie star. Like just ignoring the whole systemic thing in the studio stuff that like Jack said and was entirely correct to say. Like the issue is you also now have a generation of like incredibly handsome and beautiful people who look like movie stars but think they are Steve Buscemi. Like Colin Farrell is a great example of this, where like Colin Farrell shows up and everybody's like, he's the hottest man alive. He's gonna be in absolutely everything. He's gonna be in like a superhero movie. He's gonna be in a Spielberg movie. He's gonna be in a Bruce Willis movie. He's gonna be Joel Schumacher. He's gonna be great. People are gonna love him. He's gonna explode. And like it very quickly becomes clear that what Colin Farrell really wants is to like have a bad comb over, put on a pot belly, maybe shave his head, put on some ugly glasses, and pretend to like fight Batman in Gotham, or like be a sad, depressed guy who's going to be turned into a lobster, or like be a horrible boss. Like this is what, or like monologue about, or listen to Vince Vaughn monologue about how you get blue balls sometimes in your heart and why he can't vape because vaping is like sucking a robot's cock. Like this is like where Colin Farrell wants, and like he's. I don't know if I'm speaking out of school here, but he is happier there. I know people, because Ireland is small, I know people who know people, and they're like, he's much happier now than he was when people were like, you're going to be the new Brad Pitt, or you're going to be the new McConaughey. He's much happier being, no, I sit in a makeup chair for 6 hours and I come out and I'm an unrecognizable and can act like I'm in a 1940s film noir. And there are just so many of those. I think like McConaughey is to a certain extent one of those, where like he's trapped in these rom-coms for years and like, to be honest, seems pretty depressed about it. Then he gets out and it's like, yeah, I'm going to put on a pot belly. I'm going to shave my head. I'm going to win an Oscar, you know? Like there are this whole generation of stars.
Fires, was it not?
Yeah.
I'm going to grow everything out and be really thin.
Yeah. Sorry, I was thinking of Gold was the one I was thinking of. Apologies for that. Remember Gold?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Bryce Dallas Howard, baby. But like, they're and you mentioned like Emma Stone, where Emma Stone, like people are like, put her in a rom-com, have her do Crazy Stupid Love. She can play a native Hawaiian woman in Aloha. She could be Spider-Man's girlfriend. And like, it turns out what she actually wants to be is like the worst human being in the world in a Benny Sadfi TV show and Nathan Fielder TV show. Or she wants to be like young baby sexy Frankenstein, you know? Like that is where she wants to be.
Yeah, she wants to explore ugly horniness with Yorgos over there. Just for a couple movies, we're just going to explore ugly horniness.
Yeah, even like to include more women like Florence Pugh. Sure, she can be in the big ones, but it's the weirder ones like with A24, as you were saying. And I don't see an actor nowadays encompassing what the old school was considered to have all the range in the world. and they're not going to hit those heights, but I do think that there is a level now underneath it where it's like this is more or less what we end up with now. I think back to Steve Martin handing out the AFI Lifetime Award to Tom Hanks, where it's like I saw his acting, I was like, he's pretty good. I hope he goes somewhere. And then I saw Big, he's got comedy chops. And then I saw Apollo 13. I said, motherfucker, he's got dramatic too. You know, so to have that like bam, 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 I could do so many different things. Does any of it link to the international audience? I'm not sure so much as nowadays there has been this idea of the tradition of you got to do well in China to sell, right? Is now sort of like going away. We can almost take off in a domestic market or even Latin America, right? And so where does Glenn Powell do for that? Man's from Texas, isn't he?
I think the thing with movie stars, which is really interesting, is they still actually play better overseas than they do in America, which is very odd. Like that's why Bruce Willis is able, or Nicolas Cage, like those old kind of like 90s movie stars were able to like work their way out of debt or to work their way towards whatever Bruce Willis was doing. You all know the very tragic story, diagnosed with dementia, but for years he would do things where he would get paid $1 million a day and he would like helicopter in and helicopter out. And whatever you got done with Bruce Willis in that day, you got in the movie. And that was it. That was the Bruce Willis deal. You didn't book him for a role, you booked him for a period of time. And that was because like those movie stars do still sell overseas. So you could like Steven Seagal was able to like spin out a movie career in like Chinese movies because like as putting Steven Seagal on your poster in Eastern Europe or in Africa or even in Asia could be a draw to audiences because they kind of they still trust the Nicolas Cages, they still trust the Harrison Fords, they still trust the Bruce Willises, and apparently still trust the Steven Seagals. By the way, that movie is China Salesman. If you have not seen China Salesman, it is insane. No. The Putin. I love that I'm like a cinema propaganda guy.
No, the thing Eric's showing is that Putin.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it is. It's Steven Seagal and Putin.
Yeah, they're BFFs.
Yeah, they're very close buddies. But yeah, China Salesman is the movie that China made for the African market to convince like African nations to accept Chinese aid money. So it's about how like the Americans are evil and they're coming to plunder your resources, but only the virtuous literal China salesman of the title can be trusted to protect your national resources, unnamed African country. But like it's great. But yeah, there we go. You have like Mike Tyson and Steven Seagal. But Steven Seagal films all of his scenes in a bar. There's a sequence where his character is required to leave the bar and like ride a motorcycle, which is not something Steven Seagal can do. So it is a person who looks significantly thinner than Steven Seagal does in this photo down here, but they're riding a motorbike, and you can see when the person rides by that they are wearing a motorbike helmet with a printout of Steven Seagal's face on the inside of it with two eye holes. It's incredible. Sorry, but yeah, so movie stars, interestingly, still do sell overseas, at least within reasonable budget margins. But they weirdly don't sell as well. They sell better to foreign markets than they do to American audiences, which I find fascinating.
Well, you know, we've moved on. Our entertainment sources have also moved on. You know.
Oh my God, Eric found it.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Hold on. Now I want to.
Oh my God.
There it is. It's up for everyone.
Yeah.
That's like that reminds me
that
looks
like Hitler in a bike helmet.
Like if you've ever seen the behind the scenes for The Abyss, the way they shot those underwater scenes was it's a very small projector projecting the actors' faces in the miniatures when they're doing their underwater. It's really, really neat and really cool technology. But they're like, we can't do projectors. Does anyone have a color printer? That's all. That's all we can afford for this.
Well, that's not CGI work. I think that's just a printout. Like I'm seeing in the comments, this is bad CGI. No, they just like printed a black and white photo of like Seagal's face and just like pasted it inside the. At least that's what it looks like in motion.
In this picture, it looks like the eye holes are literally cut out. Yes.
Yeah, that's what it looked like when I saw it in motion. Yeah.
I love practical effects. Dear God.
Yeah, this is what Nolan aspires to. This is what Christopher Nolan is all about.
This is cinema.
We all said we wanted this, and this is what we got. We all wanted more practical effects. But, you know, like and the other part of this, you know, giant equation that I was getting to is like, you know, a lot of American audiences. I'm speaking, you know, obviously from a very small sample point, like of like my kids who are teenagers, they don't know movie stars. They can name 10 of their favorite YouTubers and, you know, talk about all of the hijinks they get up to on a daily basis. But if you ask them to name like an actor in a movie we saw last week, they wouldn't be able to do it. And the other part of this, it is a giant gumbo of things that are kind of diluting the movie star as a job, as an occupation, is just this rush of other media that people have to contend with.
Mm-hmm. Not just killing the movie star, killing the movies to a certain extent.
Killing
Like
movies,
again,
yeah.
and I understand it. It's like if you have a phone that gives you everything you need, why would you go to a theater specifically to watch one particular thing that lasts 2 hours? Like I understand, like, and particularly if you've been raised that way as well.
Mhm.
Like I get it. I understand the existential threat that like streaming and kind of YouTubing poses to movie going as a whole, and yeah, how that realigns the culture as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't think it's all bad, to be clear. I think that like the movie star system, to be clear, has done terrible things. You've had like it's given power to people who really didn't deserve power. We're literally talking a moment ago about a guy who leveraged his stardom to like become Vladimir Putin's hype man. The movie star system has not like across the board been 110% God's greatest gift to mankind or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But like, so I'm cognizant of like times change and things change and change is natural. And I do think that like the idea of the movie star has changed, where like in the 40s, they were just day players who were owned by the studios. It's great to have that image back up there. I really love that anybody clicking into this channel is like pro Putin and pro Seagal. But like, it is, back in the 1940s.
Twins, right?
Yeah, that's Twins 2 or Triplets, isn't it? Was Triplets with Eddie Murphy, I think, was what they were planning at one stage.
What?
But like, yeah, they're going to do triplets. That was a rumor, I believe, was that they were going to do triplets. Obviously, DeVito, Schwarzenegger, and Murphy was going to be the twist.
10 out of 10.
I love that Jack's just like, no, just don't do that.
I'm really happy that didn't happen. Yeah.
But like, obviously, the movie star is different now than it was in the 40s. Obviously, it changed dramatically during the 60s, into the 70s, into the 90s. But it is, I do wonder what the future of it looks like. Like, is one of the comments, I think, and I don't know whether it was a kind of a tip jar comment or whatever, asked, like, is that now directors, are they the big thing? And it's like, I don't even know that, because obviously I know that people will go and see a Christopher Nolan movie. I know Nolan is a brand name, but outside of that, most directors have to make franchise films. Like Lee Isaac Chung has to make a sequel to Twister, you know? Denis Villeneuve is making, like, Dune is a relatively new to cinema, with the exception of Lynch's like 1984 flop, but it's still a brand name. It's still a piece of IP. You know, there aren't many directors who get to do that. Like Greta Gerwig has to go make Narnia movies at Netflix, which she seems very happy to do. I need to rush to say. I'm not saying that Netflix like held a gun to her head and we're like, you're going to take us through the wardrobe, Greta. But like, there is a sense. No, she absolutely does. If those movies ever come out, we will talk about Greta Gerwig as pop Christian filmmaker. But like, I do think that there is this question of like, I don't know that even movie star directors have that level of power anymore outside, unless you're Nolan. Like, unless you're somebody like Nolan and maybe Spielberg at a push. But like Scorsese has to bounce around streaming services to get his movies made. Like he went to Netflix and they made The Irishman, and he was like, I got this other movie about the genocide of the Native Americans. Like, no, Marty. You take that right across the street to Apple. And now Apple are like, we don't know if we're going to be doing as much of the making stuff as we were, you know? Not your fault, Marty. No judgment, no blame, Marty, but just not what we want to do.
I think closest to like name recognition, and it's still more of a shock and awe even, is Tarantino, and that's just because him, not so much the media and all of them have made such a fuss about his like 10 perfect movies and then I'm gone type of thing, you know. It's like, well, we have to turn up now just to see if if you did it or if you die. I want to see a body, you know.
Well, he made his career into he made each of his movies into an event, right? Like that was the plan, where it's like, it's not just the summer blockbuster, it's a Tarantino movie, and we only get a limited number of these theoretically.
And he also like turned himself into a celebrity as well. Like Tarantino became a talking head. He would appear on TV shows. Like he'd just go on late night randomly, not when he was selling a movie. He'd be just like, hey, I want to talk about Top Gun for like half an hour. And like David Letterman be like, yeah, sure, that'll go well. Yeah, why not? And like he became like somebody who my gran could recognize. Like my gran could recognize Tarantino's face. And also identify the episode of CSI he directed, because there was a lot of foot emphasis in it. A lot of foot emphasis.
Mhm. Yeah, you are getting some of that. The younger generation and whatnot. They seek. I do think they seek name recognition. In the way that I guess my demographic really loved like Tim Burton, right? Bly House. What was that director? Shoot.
Oh yeah, The Haunting of Bly Manor.
Yeah, him. What was his
Oh,
name?
Mike Flanagan.
Flanagan. Yeah, there you go.
Like Flanagan has actually become a very notable director for that style of his. Like people are seeking out a sort of like, I know what I'm getting when I'm with this person. So if anything, they almost like.
But he's
don't
moved
like
into
range
TV. Like
as
he's
much.
really moved
Yeah,
away
yeah.
from directing movies as well. Is the thing. Like he's had to go
Yeah.
into the
No,
and now he's
they look
become
for
the
him in
yeah.
shows. You know, the
Yeah.
Flanagan verse or whatever it is. Snyder, right? How
The
many people
Flaniverse.
love Snyder? And I don't know why, but they do.
Not as many as Snyder thinks. But no, I think like kind of if this is wrapped up a lot in like Frost, your earlier point about and I guess Darren's earlier point about actors being very more comfortable and happier with these smaller, weirder roles because they know that they can't break through that movie star ceiling, and so they're like, guess what? Yeah, I'm gonna put on a wig and just have fun, or I'm gonna hang out with my friend Yorgos and just make weirdo movies because that's where I can have fun. And hopefully we kind of get that equilibrium where we do get an influx of more creative projects because they're not hoping for movie stardom anymore.
Ben Affleck's like, I think my third superhero will be the time I crack it.
That's
It's like I've got a good feeling. I'm gonna play the MCU's looking for a Charles Xavier, and I'm gonna marry J-Lo again. That's the plan. Third time will be the charm on each of those.
Shotgun Wedding 2, starring Ben Affleck.
What about? Do you think there's any that almost made it and like flopped? So for here, I've got some more written down.
Oh, sure.
I think Jonathan Majors was doing well until the thing. Until the thing, right?
Yeah.
Chadwick Boseman, I think he was doing really well until his thing, which is a completely different thing. One died of cancer, the other one domestic violence, I believe. And alongside them, I thought Michael B. Jordan was having to come up too, and I'm not sure what happened there because they were taking
Jordan's
on some dramatic
transitioned
roles.
into directing. Like that's the thing, again, like the Robbie thing.
See, maybe this is just
Yeah.
healthier, right?
But again, like people are mentioning like Jordan Peele is a great example. People are citing like Jordan Peele as a brand name director, and I think that's a good argument. But Peele is also a guy who's like, can I be an actor? And it's like, no, I just want. It's easier for me to direct movies. But like, because Jordan directed Creed 3, which is like a legitimately wonderfully directed movie. But I think that's where his interests seem to lie now, which is wild. Because he's one of the most charismatic leading men in cinema.
Honestly, like he can do anything in front of the camera, and I'm there for it. But perhaps it's that constant.
Were you there for Fan Four Stick?
I was there for Fan Four Sticks for very different reasons. Very different reasons.
That's the curse of the Human Torch. It's bad, but you'll be the one that survives.
Yeah. No, Miles Teller eventually made a little comeback, and other people I'm sure were in that movie.
Ask how pissed do you think Miles Teller is that it was Glenn Powell who got the Tom Cruise film school?
Oh,
I don't know.
yeah.
See, I don't think he goes for those kinds of roles.
Yeah.
He
That's
definitely
fair.
likes his weirder ones, like even Whiplash, or back in that one where they were in college, I believe.
Him and Michael B. Jordan were together in like the one with his Imogen Poots, which is just a great name. Everybody Poots. Sam Worthington, double finger there in the comments with the €2 donation. Sam Worthington is actually in Kevin Costner's Horizon at the moment, which I find fascinating because like Horizon 2 is not happening. Apparently, it's just gone on the Batgirl shelf. So I can probably talk about this. It won't be regarding a spoiler. The big reveal at the end of the first Horizon is a trailer for Horizon 2, which is a movie that no longer exists, apparently. But the big reveal is that the villain of Horizon 2 is going to be Giovanni Ribisi. And I just want to say it is incredible. Like the camera cruises up and it's the back of his head, and then we cut to riding horses, and we're seeing his silhouette, and Kevin Costner has a shotgun out, and suddenly he turns around and faces the camera. It's Giovanni Ribisi, and then it's Horizon Part 2, an American saga in cinemas in August. And it's like the kids love Giovanni Ribisi. But my question is, looking at the fact that Worthington is one of the leads in like Horizon, and the big cliffhanger at the end of the movie is, oh my God, it was Giovanni Ribisi all along. Do we think Kevin Costner loved Avatar?
Yes.
The one note I had on Dances with Wolves was it would be much better if everybody was blue. That was the one thing. And Jimmy, he saw it. He made it real.
I think Kevin Costner was probably like, the older generation's failed Margot Robbie, because he has attempted to be on the production level of several movies, all of them failures. Mostly because he insisted they be very long, starring Kevin Costner.
And in most cases directed by Kevin Costner as well. Like there's the really great line with Kevin Reynolds, right? Where Reynolds has directed like numerous Costner movies, including like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the famous Waterworld, and then the Hatfield and McCoys. And they have this relationship where it always starts with like Reynolds being like, myself and Costner, we're best buds. Costner going, Kevin, do you feel like you're making the best directorial choices? And then going, here, just let me step into the directorial role. And then in interviews, Kevin Reynolds being, you know what? I think it's a good thing that Kevin Costner basically directed this movie himself, because it meant Kevin Costner got to work with both his favorite actor and his favorite director, and I'll never work with that fucker again. And then 4 years later, going on and making like a History Channel miniseries with him. Costner is such a fascinating man.
I think that's what's missing. A certain level of crazy. I think that's staying in the 90s, in the 80s, even near the back end of 2000s. Because if we think of our, of movie actors from back then, they've all got something. Even Cruise and the whole ideology thing, right? Mm-hmm. They've all got just something that leads that sort of.
And as you say, like it's such a thin line between that and like the Jonathan Majors stuff. Like that's the thing. Yeah. It's like I can imagine. Like part of me does wonder if you mentioned it earlier, and I wonder if that is part of the concern of it. The idea of like, can we have movie stars without the baggage of movie stars?
Yeah,
where like
part of it.
But understandably today, and we kind of alluded to it. We should be direct and honest about it. Things like say Kirk Douglas and Kirk Douglas's private life, and what we now know about Kirk Douglas's private life, we would not tolerate from a movie star today, and quite rightly so. And part of me is like, our studio is also just doing the calculation of like, man, it would be really easy if like Kang was just played by an AI bot that would absolutely, positively, certainly not like abuse its girlfriend while boasting that appearing in Loki season 2 was contributing to the greatness of mankind as a species. Yeah, like
you say that, but even to Jack's point of like how his children now see more YouTubers and they recognize them more. Even on the gaming side of things, you see so many crossovers with YouTube personalities, but there's so much backlash whenever one of them comes off to be, have done something. The most recent one being Dr. Disrespect. Now the NFL is like, we have nothing to do with this man. He's getting taken out of video games, right? I think as much as it is, we want the power. It's also, we don't want that baggage. Like, so you end up with this, like, I can't have you being too strong, but also if you're just a little too crazy. Back then, it's just, he's eccentric and hard to work with. Now it's like,
But back then, before we had access to all the information we have, and everyone has a camera on them at all times. Before, now we know they're not eccentric; they're bad. But before, we didn't know, we didn't have all that information, or at least all that information was murky enough where you could plausibly deny it. Yeah, this is me plausibly denying something, by the way. Right. And so there is an adjustment period where someone that driven, that egocentric to believe that they are good enough is going to naturally rise up the ranks in the entertainment world, because you need that bit of crazy to be driven. You need that bit of ego to think you are good enough, right? But now the other side of it also, you need to be a little squeakier cleaner than oh no, I'm an AI. Thanks, Eric.
Bicentennial man. There we go.
Bicentennial, right? And so like they need that, and so it's always going to be a balance, right, between who holds the ultimate power. We know way back in the studio system that was too much power for the studios. Then the stars got a little power. Now they got too much power, so we're constantly going to be like pulling back and forth between who has control of what. And eventually it'll just be AI because that's all it's good for is making mediocre art.
Yeah, like who you got? Even including the older stars of the crazies, right? If Tom Cruise is the wildest, right, that is like nothing compared to how it used to be. To me, I think, and he probably isn't even wild off screen anymore. Like Bale, with the roles he chooses, with what he chooses to be, how he portrays himself, his whole method and whatnot. I think the last thing we heard about him that was negative though was the Terminator freak out, right?
Yeah, I mean, like there's the situation with Depp, say, and obviously, like you have the more serious case of like Kevin Spacey, who is like clawing his way back. I will say, I think I mentioned it last week. The scariest thing I saw at Cannes was a poster for a new movie starring Kevin Spacey. Like you have this, and well, again, because movie stars sell internationally. So like there's the photo of Kevin Spacey doing an actor's workshop in Eastern Europe, which is very kind of it feels like the beginning of something, unsettlingly enough, unfortunately. Like there is that sense of like Mel Gibson is a very obvious example of somebody who has clawed their way back. Got Oscar nominations for like Hacksaw Ridge, directing Hacksaw Ridge after everything that like, and that's a case where it's not really ambiguous. It's not like whispers and gossip. There's actually like tape recordings of several of these incidents, you know? Yeah.
So, but I do think there has been a line of like, there's only so much we can do with Spacey and Gibson. We're gonna try to make sure that the next ones aren't like that, and that's why like they are more squeaky clean, and that's why like even with Glenn Powell, I feel like there's not much happening above here.
He has a pet slug that he loves. Like he has a dog and a pet slug that he like. That seems to be all that's going on in there.
Have you guys seen that interview where Tom Cruise gets sprayed with a water gun? And he's just there like, why would you do that? Why would you do such a thing? Why would you? And the intensity that just comes off of this man when he's not even acting, right?
Yeah.
When he's with Glenn Powell and they're just in front of cameras, he radiates. And Glenn Powell, I see it here when the smile comes through, but there's nothing going on in this forehead. Nicholson with the crazy eyebrows, like, it was there all the time. Even in the other interviews, he's like down here, like, yeah, I just love to act, that kind of like wildness about him. I don't see that in Chalamet. I don't see that in Glenn Powell yet. Maybe they
as a nation we've all agreed not to ask any questions about Jack Nicholson. Like that's the thing. I think collectively as a culture we've agreed that we just don't want to know anything about Nicholson.
Correct. The less we know, the better. Yeah.
And like to his like Nicholson also like has disappeared from public. He still goes to LA Laker games and he still shows up with women who are. Does he? I didn't know that. Oh, that's very sad.
I think he's like just done. He's like.
Okay. Well, he has retired. Yeah. He still goes to Laker games
for a while.
For like like Gene Hackman. It's the kind of thing where he just kind of like bowed out and seemed to be like enjoying his life. Like there are photos of him on like yachts and like in hot tubs and things. And I'm like, that is great. If I was that rich and I had done like that much and I was like, I have contributed to culture. People know what my voice and my voice sounds like and my eyebrows look like. I'd be like, yeah, I can just I can go home early and retire. Like,
wouldn't that be lovely to reach that level? Good for them. Good for them. Bow out before you become the villain.
Yeah. To the last of them, as far as like that crazy nature, I said Bale. Last two for me would be like Nicolas Cage, but he's not even crazy. He just really likes German cinema. That's where all of his inspiration. It's always German. It's always German. I lost my hand. I lost my bride. He's like, yeah, I saw that in a German play once, and I just wanted to try it. And then the other one was Tom Hardy. With his earlier roles, at least, like Bronson, just out here bare knuckle boxing people in the buff, and I'm like, yeah, he's gonna go somewhere.
Even like Bane, which is an insane performance in a like multi-$100 million blockbuster. Like, can you imagine showing up in like the MCU or even in Twisters and being like, "This is my accent."
Do you know where he got that from?
Yeah, from a boxer.
Yeah, he's like, he said, the king of the gypsies. I used to be a man. What to beat my face in. It spoke like this. And I said, Chris, we can either do this or we can try something else.
Yeah. I do love the story of him on the set of Venom, where he like shows up to the restaurant where he's supposed to have dinner with like the character's girlfriend, and he just goes to the director before they begin shooting and says, "Look, Ruben, I want you to know by the end of the take, I'm going to be in that lobster tank." Well, and Ruben Fletcher's like, shit. I had the entire team of like interns and production assistants wrapping the claws of every lobster in that tank because I really didn't want lobster cuts off Tom Hardy's dick to be the headline on like TMZ the following morning.
It is a different energy I suppose, of just I'm gonna go, and it goes to the other way. Even for like the purists, they're crazy too. Like De Niro saying, "Let the writers write and we act." Don't he absolutely hates like ad libbing and freestyle and any of that kind of stuff. But to have that energy of just like of do the craft, do the thing, it's not there as much, and I think it's because it's hard to rein in. So they could be a risk, finding them in a strange hotel with strange people, and you've ruined the tour.
Like Shia LaBeouf is also in that world, right?
Yeah, he's a bit weird. Mm-hmm.
He's a bit weird. He's had a few murmurings here and there, a little method, a little weird, but also like people no longer like working with him, so he's just not working as much.
Yeah, he's in the new Coppola movie. He's in the Megalopolis.
Good.
Oh yeah.
I like it was Jack Black.
Bet that made it easier to finance, but sorry.
I like that Jack Black just showed up to watch. He's not in the movie. He was just watching them make it.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
All right. Why don't we start delving into some super chats here? Alrighty. Let's start here. Nick Warden, thanks for the super chat. Says, happy Tuesday. Love the new show. Glad I could catch it live today. Thank you, Nick Warden. Pure Pyro, thoughts? Oh, speaking of a little bit crazy, thoughts on Joaquin Phoenix and the Joker.
See, that's more or less what I mean. Where like, if you were trying to be a breakout star, 80s, 90s, you probably fizzle out, right? Whereas nowadays, it's you are almost seeing older stars, right? More longevity on a lot of other ones. Is that the path to stardom is a lot gentler on the knees as you're climbing up, and then as you're descending.
Yeah.
I love seeing how he's grown, how he's gotten bigger over time. Grand.
Oh yeah, I think a lot of people are going to have very complicated feelings about Joker de Folies as they are. Folie à deux, thank you. So I think that's going to be interesting when like kind of the zeitgeist and the counterculture folk meet head on.
Hold on. He's kind of always been present in zeitgeist and counterculture, like for Gladiator.
Sure.
Walk the Line. It's Johnny Cash. It makes us talking counterculture to that. I think there are some people that make it as sort of the zeitgeist as weirdos, right? Where this is, if you're not mainstream, but you're also not getting into the whole pretentious indie bit, this is like, oh, I bet you've never heard of Joaquin Phoenix, have you? Like, yeah, most people have. He's not that obscure,
He did star in a movie that made $1 billion and won him an Oscar, and he was also Johnny Cash.
Right. Absolutely.
And in Gladiator. He was the bad guy in Gladiator.
Oh, he's been around.
Yeah.
B Pendragon, thanks for entering or being a member of the tip jar for 8 months. We appreciate that support. CSI Freak says our 4DX is far more crazier. This is the 4D experience, movie-going experience. Air, water spray, mad shaking. It's great. My first film they showed was Aquaman, and they had to turn the settings down.
What? Imagine.
Aquaman in 4D, everybody.
A very wet movie. Do they just flood the theater?
That'd be great. And
that'd be great.
I didn't. Okay, I expected.
What do you reckon Aquaman smells like in 4DX?
Absolutely,
because they spray little bursts of air.
Just fish, pure umami. That guy. And beer. No, as I was buying this ticket, I was like, did I get the right thing? I almost felt like I was getting scammed because it was a much smaller theater than all the other ones. I said, I think they're just going to take us into the break room and shake the seats.
it's some poor staff member reading a magazine with a broom.
Just poking at me whenever there's shrapnel flying across. Like, I've been shot.
Let's see here. Have star directors replace movie stars in the sense audiences will go watch a director over a movie star. We touched on that a little bit, which is like it's just their own style of movie stardom, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, Christopher Nolan is arguably the star of Oppenheimer. I don't like, as much as I love Cillian Murphy and as much as I'm delighted he has an Oscar now, I don't think like the crowds were baying for Murphy.
Right.
When you have to teach people how to pronounce your name on the red carpet, you're not yet a movie star. That is one of my
There it
rules.
is.
And a lot of Irish people got really angry at me for saying I don't know Cillian Murphy's a movie star. But if you have to teach people how to pronounce your name, that it isn't Cillian, you're not a movie star yet. And I think Cillian is tremendous. He is actually really nice. He's really wonderful.
Yeah, no, I think directors, like we talked about earlier, also kind of like boutique studios. Like if A24 comes across in the trailer, people know it's a mark of quality, or some sort of stamp. Yeah.
After 4 trailers that were about Jesus, one of them was like Kevin Sorbo, Cuba Gooding Jr. It was
God's Not Dead 3, is it, or something?
No, it's some guy who was like a drug dealer, gone to prison. He's going to get executed, but he found the Lord. And then there was Reagan, and then there's like Ralph Fiennes as the Pope. And then
that's the one with like
then A24 came through.
Dennis Quaid,
yeah, that's Dennis Quaid and John Voight are in that. Yeah,
American cinema is very strange.
It's odd. And then A24 came through, keeping the whole Bible and Jesus thing, but it's a new horror movie with Hugh Grant. Did you see that?
Yes, the one where the 2 women come to the house, the Believer or something.
Weird,
it's like, where it's like,
I think it's because I'm in the Bible Belt, so to speak. So on top of that, they gave me more ads for Jesus or AI, and then finally A24 goes, "Heard you like Jesus, eh?" And then I'm like, "Oh, okay."
If you like Jesus and 4 weddings and a funeral, have we got the movie for you?
Yeah,
there it is.
Yeah, of all those, I'd sooner see the Hugh Grant one. That one.
Of course. Because like at the end of the day, that's what we're, like when we talk about movie stars, when we talk about studios, all we are talking about is someone putting their reputation on the line to say, I think that this is worth your time and money, whether that's, Marvel, whether that's Arnold Schwarzenegger, or whether that is A24, right?
I think you have to do it collectively now. Like, like Jordan Peele, when he's with specific actors, I'm more eager, right? Hugh Grant with specific actors, I'm more eager. It's almost like the Tim Allen effect. Some people just don't do well alone. But that almost speaks to old school studios. Do they not used to like bargain? Where it's like, okay, if you want to make this movie, I want this one that does well with like a Western audience, and I need this like new hot female.
We'll give you him for 3 weeks, and in return, you're going to give him, let him finish the picture.
Yeah, so like
the Wizard of Oz had like 4 different directors, I think, because they kept rotating them out. Because like he's got to go make a Western picture.
Sure,
Kakor, you're in.
So it's like all this collective bargaining and appealing to the demographic has to be with them, right? I don't know if anyone can sell it, but maybe if you get 4 of them together, you're like, okay, all right, something's going on here.
So
maybe that's
what you want an A24 produced Marvel movie starring Hugh Grant.
No. Disgusting.
I would want. I mean, my bar for what I would watch is pretty low, but I would watch that.
All right. Yeah. Speaking to like the Dungeons and Dragons, right? You got Chris Pine, Hugh Grant, and the directors of Game
Michelle
Night,
Rodriguez.
Right?
Yeah.
Michelle Rodriguez. Yeah, collectively, and that's almost how you do it. Where one person can't get all the audiences, but maybe 2, 4, 5. Enough.
Well, that's the Gladiator 2 logic, where it's like we have Paul Mescal for the Gen Zs, we have Denzel for the OAPs, Pedro Pascal is still Zaddy, baby. It's like that is a movie that feels like it is demographically grown in a lab to be a like 6-quadrant hit somehow.
It's different how it was before. How like if you needed like Latinos, let's get Cheech. Let's just get Cheech in this. Yeah.
Right? Did you see Shotgun Wedding?
I'm so good. We must
do a deep dive on J-Lo, to be fair. Like J-Lo's just streaming hits.
If you want
the Mother.
I will dedicate an entire episode to Shotgun Wedding. I think it is fascinating.
Okay. Well, we'll put that on the list. If the audience demands it, I'm willing to do it.
They won't. It's okay. Let's see here. We have
we spent an episode on like the Christmas Prince, didn't we? If I remember correctly, the 3 Christmas Prince movies.
We sure did. It was great. It's still one of my favorite episodes.
White people Wakanda.
King and Commoner, thank you for the tip over on YouTube. It almost feels like Hollywood doesn't want any more movie stars. Are they trying not to have to dedicate so much of the budget to the actors? I mean, obviously, we talked a lot about the press ramifications of if a movie star, delves into the bad, but also that's a huge factor. Budget. Yeah.
Like that, and particularly in the streaming age, where like in the old days, what you would do is you would give a star a reasonable portion of money, and then they would give them residuals off the back end, and those residuals would be calculated assuming that it would have long legs in theaters. So if you were going to star in a movie, you knew it was going to be in theaters for 3 or 4 months. So you knew law of averages, just even rolling down that hill, you would pick up like a fair whack of money. Nowadays, if you're putting a movie directly onto streaming, there's none of that. So you instead of like taking a residual, you insist on getting paid a larger chunk of cash up front. And that carries over into like the shortened cinematic windows, where like even if you're in a movie releasing in theaters, if you're worried that they're just going to send it straight to streaming, you're not going to want residuals because there aren't going to be any, because it's not going to run long enough. So you want to get paid more up front. Like that's why if you look at things like there was the Netflix Nora Ephron movie, which had the absurd budget where she wanted something like $180 million to make a romantic comedy. And everyone was like, how the hell does a Nora Ephron movie demand the same budget as something like, 4 or 5 Dev Patel's Monkey Mans? And the reason for that is because she would have to pay everybody up front in order to get them involved in the movie.
Sure.
That's why the Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum like Moon movie that nobody's heard of cost like $130 million, because like probably 50 million of that went on the 2 leads, because they knew that it was going to go pretty much straight to streaming. Like that's why it is, I think.
Money. It's incredibly volatile now, even something like without a scandal. I'm sure a lot of people lost faith in the Rock stock after the whole, I'm going to change the power imbalances or whatever, and well, you didn't do anything. You flopped just as much as
the
the
hierarchy
other
of power, isn't it?
The hierarchy
he did change the hierarchy of power, to be fair. He did change it, not in the way he intended, but he did change it.
Changed. I've done my job. I'm off to the WWE
Brought the
again.
temple down.
Yes. Let's see here. We have Double Finger. Thank you for this tip. How's Sam Worthington nowadays? Anyway, we talked a little bit about Sam Worthington earlier.
More than anybody's talked about Sam Worthington.
I mean, 5 Avatar movies. He's fine. He'll be all right.
He's fine. He will continue to be just as bland as ever. No offense to Sam Worthington.
Can I throw a really hot take on that? Like, what I find really strange is that like Australia produced Sam Worthington, and then they were like, "Look, we've created an actor so bland with no personality whatsoever, but we think we can do it even better. We hope you like Jay Courtney." It is so strange that like Australia was like, maybe Sam Worthington is too spicy. Maybe he has too much personality. Here we go. Second time round.
Boomerang. All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did you just have to look up Jai Courtney?
I did, yeah. I was like,
yes. Yeah. That's how bland he is. I have a tab open for Sam Worthington to remember what his face looks like.
I know Sam Worthington because he was in Black Ops, and yeah, he was also in a lot of like streaming movies.
Oh,
wow.
And a Terminator movie, I think, as well, wasn't he? He was in like the Christian Bale one, Salvation.
Salvation, yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of Christian Bale's, little light rant, which I don't want to be an apologist.
Your fucking lights.
I don't want to be an apologist, but I understand where he came from, as far as that rant is concerned.
Yeah, didn't you tell us of Denzel when he had his outburst because people were like not respecting his space while he was in a wheelchair and. No, that wasn't you. It was.
I don't think that was me. Yeah.
No, there was. We interviewed a developer for Outlast Trials, and he was like a stagehand or whatever. And Bones. Where was Denzel in a wheelchair?
Flight.
It's very.
Was he in a wheelchair in Flight?
I don't know.
That's the one where he's the pilot and he's an alcoholic. It's the other guys in the James Badge Dale's in the wheelchair in Flight. Apologies.
When Denzel is Bone Collector.
You're right. He is paralyzed. He's solving
paralyzed.
the mystery while paralyzed. Yeah, Angelina Jolie is the cop who's like the one who does the footwork for him. There we go. And great call.
He was in the chair, and there was this door that they kept on like going in and out of, and he was like strapped down into it, obviously for the thing. And he's like, "Can you guys like not go through like they're bringing heavy gear and almost hitting him with some of the stuff." He's like, "Please don't, please none of that." And then as he recounted the most Denzel, "Can y'all stop going through that motherfucking door?" And I'm like,
we got some jobs to do here. Yeah.
We got some jobs. Sometimes you're just like in the man's space there. So
Right.
again, not for apologists for Bale, but I can see where he's coming from.
There are certain times, I think Darren, you and I talked about this, way back at the other show when Tom Cruise had his whole, mask meltdown during the filming. And, we
don't ever want to see it again.
Hollywood. Right. Do you understand what we're doing here? We're setting a precedent. And it's like, part of that is very true. Like he is trying to save an industry.
Yeah, and part of it is also, to be fair, a bit of a god complex. This is the movie star thing where like the weight of the world depends. Like that's the famous Tom Cruise Scientology video, which I'm sure, and again, I'm throwing this out to Eric. I don't know if it exists in the wild legally anymore, but I remember there was a while when it circulated on YouTube. But the one where he's like, it is the Scientology recruitment video with Tom Cruise, and he's like, because if there's an accident, you're the only one who can help. You might be a Scientologist. Like that's the kind of like God-esque energy that Cruise kind of aspires to, where it's not just that he is saving movies because he's a movie star. He's saving movies because his religion has taught him that he's the only one who can help Jack. God
bless that crazy man.
Him and his middle.
There we go. That's well done, Eric.
No.
That is
Don't play it. Don't play it. We're not on a list. All right, we'll move on. Thanks for the YouTube tip. Says, what qualities make a bad movie enjoyable?
Ooh.
Fun.
It just comes down to like personal taste of like, oh, that appealed to me.
Yeah.
Those moments where you're like, those jokes that make you laugh, and you're just like, that wasn't funny, but I don't know why. It just really hit me.
Yeah. For me, what I think works is like it's kind of earnestness, but not like self-importance, which is a very thin line to walk. Like I find like if I'm watching a bad movie that I'm really enjoying, I feel like I've been given the key to the inside of like the head of a person who is not like human or recognizably human, who is like looking at the same world I am, but seeing it in a way that does not make sense, cannot be reconciled with like the human experience of what living is. Tommy Wiseau's The Room is like a great example of that, where like you can tell that this is his vision, this is how he sees the world, but it is completely insane. Birdemic is another example of that, where human beings do not interact the way that they do, but you can tell that inside this guy's head, this is how humans behave. Like for me, that's the thing with a bad movie that I find enjoyable, is one that I watch and go, wait, like it's like this I can recognize things that look human that are like one step removed from things that I recognize, but which are completely batshit insane. Like this is somebody trying to communicate themselves to me and has never spoken to another human being before in their lives. That's kind of like, for me, is like the secret sauce for like a good bad movie.
To me, a lot of those like bad movies that are good, rarely are they comedy. Like they're not intended to be. It's usually someone who really like, I have something to say about this thing I love or this thing I hate, and like, okay, it was just the execution that they flubbed. And the lack of cohesive vision, sure.
It's the same where it's like, if you go to your local art museum, usually they have an outsider art exhibit. And, outsider art is just like, art created by people with no formal training. And so it's like, here is a painting by someone who's never studied painting, who they just wanted to paint something. And it kind of resembles a painting. but like you see that earnestness, right? And you just go, oh my God, like I see the message that they're coming across, but the way in which they painted using, using a hard drive, using a floppy disk hard drive, which is just a thing on my desk over there, is the juxtaposition of what I know this is established to be and the thing in front of me is beautiful and wonderful. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I mean, like, we should say there are good equivalents of that. Like David Lynch is a great example of somebody who does that well.
Yes.
Where like you're watching a Lynch thing and it feels like you're watching somebody communicate something that they can't say in words. But like, but it's good and it's beautiful and it's clear and it speaks to you emotionally. So like that is not a uniquely bad movie thing. But I do think there is an element of like, when I'm watching a bad movie I'm enjoying, it's like this person is trying to say something that really matters to them, but has never interacted with another human being in their life, apparently, like has been raised by computers or something,
Oh,
exactly.
I'm gonna fire a cannon at the Sphinx, That's what I'm gonna do.
Take the nose off.
Absolutely. Joel Rowe, thank you for the YouTube tip. Says money, a lull, and support for second rewind UWU. Thank you,
Ooh.
Jelro. We appreciate that support. Sir George Lucas say, what saith you about Timothy Oliphant as an actor? Not a movie star, but a hell of an actor.
A great
love
actor.
Timothy Oliphant. Yeah.
And he seems like he's having fun as well. Like he seems like he's settled into like a bit where he's just enjoying being himself. Because there was a while where like he was doing Hitman and stuff, and it seemed like Hollywood was like, "Is he a movie star?" And the answer is definitely no. But it's also like, no, he's just a really cool guy to have in your movie or TV show, which I love.
Yeah.
He's just this, like Southern Chris Pine as well.
Yeah.
Just like,
deep fried
crisp pine. A crisp pine, yeah.
Justified. What's that? One other. Like,
yes, Justified.
Deadwood, you know, like, man wants to be a cowboy.
Yeah, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Yeah, like.
Let him do his thing. He's great. Yeah.
He's the guy who shows up and like puts Leonardo DiCaprio kind of in his place in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's like, Leonardo DiCaprio, you're at a date and at a touch. This is what a cowboy actor looks like.
Absolutely. Double Finger, thank you for the YouTube tip, says, love how David Harbour always just seems happy to be there. Vibes of just a regular dude who happened to walk on set and got away with it. Much like Timothy Oliphant. Absolutely. Just show up, have a good time.
And like always give more than the movie needs. Like there was a while where like I hadn't quite clocked who he was around about I think 2008ish when he's in like Quantum of Solace, and he has like his character in Quantum of Solace has a mustache and is an asshole, and I was just like that is a guy to watch. Was it like the line he has where he's like, yeah, we should only work with good people, and it's like that is the one line I remember from Quantum of Solace is when the CIA analyst says the line, yeah, we should only work with good people. But yeah, Harbour's always, he's always a safe harbor in a storm.
Oh my God. Yeah, he's got an intensity about him. I think the youngest I've seen him is Aaron Sorkin's The Newsroom, where he comes off as very like, oh, I look angry, but I'm actually a softie. But if you cross him, he's very like, I am bigger than you. I will take a bite out of you.
He was Die Hard Santa Claus, wasn't he?
He was Die Hard Santa Claus.
Oh,
yeah. I'm trying to remember the name of that movie now.
Silent Night, I think, or Silent Night, Deadly Night, or something. Yeah.
So yeah, he was in Hellboy. I haven't seen that one yet. That scares me.
Okay, hold on. I'm just gonna.
Deadly Night. Silent Night, Deadly Night is a series of old Christmas
an actual horror movies.
Someone
David
in chat
Harbour,
knows,
Santa Claus.
Right?
Santa Claus movie is Silent Night.
Oh, okay, just Silent Night. Yeah. Oh, Violent.
No, Violent Night.
Yes, there it is. Sorry, my audio cut off for just a second.
He was in Gran Turismo as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, he's around. Nice guy. I think like that. It's hard for like he's definitely like he has a type that he likes to play, and I think for that type, like kind of that very subtle wink nod to the audience of like, hey, are we having a good time here? We're having a good time here. Yeah. Let's save some kids from monsters.
He was in Alone in the Dark.
I'm not going to be anybody's favorite Hellboy, but I'll be Hellboy.
Yeah, very, very much. Mm-hmm. He does well.
Yeah, absolutely. Sir George Lucas says, I've heard Jeremy Strong is a weirdo actor, and I don't know if I've seen Jeremy Strong in anything. I had to Google him.
Oh, he was in Succession.
I've not seen Succession.
And he's Roy Cohn in the new Trump. Oh, okay. He's also. Have you seen Serenity? Speaking of like bad movies that are secretly great, have you seen Serenity?
Maybe not.
Not the Josh Whedon movie. Okay, this is the Matthew McConaughey one where he's a fisherman who's hunting a tuna fish called Justice, and it has one of the most insane there he is. Like Jeremy Strong plays a character called The Rules in that movie. And it's just it's a bad movie, I want to be clear, but it's also kind of a great movie. It has one of the most frankly insane twists.
To give everyone an idea of how bad a movie this is, it is free to watch on Tubi right now.
Wow.
Putting that out there.
And I'm not going to recommend it, but I'm also not going to recommend it. The thing about Strong, which is interesting, is Strong is quote unquote a method actor. Now we should be clear, when you say method, it isn't actually the Stanislavski method. The Stanislavski method is the radical idea in the 1950s of pretend that your character has a life outside of what appears in the script. Like that's it. Just close your eyes and imagine what your character is feeling as opposed to what they are saying on the page. That is the Stanislavski method. At a very very high level, very broad level. And keep in mind, I'm basing this largely on the fact that I had a partner who studied drama, so this just kind of soaked in secondhand. I may be wrong, but I think I'm right. But like they used to get really upset when people would talk about like Marlon Brando or Daniel Day-Lewis going method and like getting in character by, I don't know, sawing off their leg or gaining 100 pounds, because that's not what the method is. The method is like, imagine what it would be like to weigh 400 pounds, not weigh 400 pounds.
Yeah.
It's the very literal minded. I think like Christian Bale argues that the thing about the method is it takes something that, and you know, not to indulge in gendered stereotypes, but Bale argues like men, like your big you don't see many female method actors, and it's because like for Bale, acting doesn't feel like a very masculine activity. It doesn't feel very macho. It doesn't feel like doing something with your hands. So if you do something like ride around in a wheelchair for 6 months to get into character, or, you know, if you like learn or you shave every hair on your body or something like that, you feel like you're doing something that is real, quote unquote. And so it feels more authentic to you, like in a macho sense. But to Strong is an actor who works like that. And I want to be clear, I think this is a very important distinction to make when we talk about weirdo actors, because when we talked about weirdo actors, we were talking about like Jonathan Majors, Kirk Douglas, Kevin Spacey, bad people who have done bad things, and who, you know, can be great actors. I'm, you know, not going to comment on that. Strong has never hurt anybody. Strong has seemingly never caused any real discomfort to anybody. Like the issue is that he's just intense and weird. And like Brian Cox used to be driven up the wall on Succession. Like Brian Cox, who is a man who famously has no patience for anyone. I think the great, like he had that biography where he would just like list people that he had grievances with, which was just the best way to write an autobiography, where he's like, good old Michael Caine, great guy. Not a great actor, but then again, when you're an institution, you don't have to be. That sort of thing. And Cox was like, has this really withering impression of Strong as an actor, where it's like, there must be an easier way for him to do this. It does seem like Jeremy puts himself to a lot of pressure to do that. Surely he could just read the scripts.
Laurence Olivier, you know, my dear boy, have you tried acting?
And I think that kind of comes across if you watch Succession, where there is this tension of like the Jeremy Strong character being so desperate to prove himself to his father, and his father, played by Brian Cox, being like, you're trying too hard, it's really off-putting and making all of us uncomfortable. But like Strong is interesting because generally speaking, like Strong will give an interview and he will come off sounding, he'll talk about like dramaturgy, for example. He'll talk very actorly, very highfalutin. He really cares about the craft in a way that I think is kind of endearing. I do agree with Brian Cox. There's probably a less stressful way for him to do this. But it's very telling that, like, generally speaking, when people are interviewed about, like, Strong, they're very protective of him. Anne Hathaway, for example, is very protective of him. Where, like, they're very anxious that he will, when they tell stories about him, that he'll be portrayed as, quote unquote, a weirdo. Or that he'll be portrayed as difficult to work with. And he's not. He's just, he has a process that he follows, that he cares very deeply about. Sure. And so I kind of, when we talk about Strong as a weirdo, I think that is accurate. He is an actor who is very intense and very process-driven. But I want to draw a line between that and like what we unfortunately, but perhaps fairly associate with the method, which is Jared Leto sent used condoms to his co-stars, which is horrendous and should not be tolerated and is not cute or funny, you know?
So Jeremy Strong is that kind of like classic eccentric. We're not talking about criminal weirdos like with these other things. He is just eccentric. He is now what we call eccentric. Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
I wonder what he done to get in a character for The Gentleman with also Matthew McConaughey. I wonder what his process is. Yeah.
Let's see here. CSI Freak, do you think Clint Eastwood's directing equals his acting?
Surely, right? The
Hot
infamous
take.
for just like one cut. That's it.
Yeah. He doesn't say action and he doesn't say cut because when he was a cowboy actor, the horses had memorized those lines. Like horses who work in show business know that when directors yell action, it means time to start horse acting. And like when they say cut, it's time to stop suddenly. So apparently Eastwood's thing is whenever you're ready is like what he says instead of action. And when instead of saying cut, he says, that's enough of that now. Which is just great. Like I think Tom Hanks has said it's the most disconcerting thing he's ever experienced on a set is Clint Eastwood like staring at him going, whenever you're ready. But like, and very famously, yes, he is a one take kind of guy, which it can be very disconcerting to actors who are used to having multiple takes to figure out what they're doing, when he'll be like, no, it's in focus, we'll print it and we'll move on. I do think, though, there's an argument that he's probably, is he a better director than an actor? I know he has an acting Oscar for Unforgiven, doesn't he? But he has no, he doesn't. He has a directing Oscar and a Best Picture Oscar for Unforgiven. And also for $1 Million Baby. I think you could make an argument he's a more consequential and probably better director than he is an actor.
Might just be the kinds of films he chooses, because everyone's on edge and he makes them on edge. So, like American Sniper. Whenever people, I forgot which actor it was, I said, "Can I do one more take?" And he said, "You want to waste everyone's time?" No, I'm okay. All right.
No. The story they tell about Eastwood is like, even in his 80s, making like The Mule, which is a movie he is also starring in, he would be wrapped by 5 and would play like a half round of golf afterwards at the age of like 87 or whatever it was, which is just, he's directing Juror Number 2 and he's like 92, 93, 94-ish now, which is insane.
Man stays active.
I think in... like accolades aside, zeitgeist, he will always be an actor. Like people, when they picture Clint Eastwood, when I still picture Clint Eastwood, he's the cowboy, right? He is the man with no name or what.
Even me, I assume was Gran Torino on the way out.
Sure.
I don't really think Eastwood, American Sniper, and he's Reagan. No, he's not making Reagan. It's not him making Reagan.
Eastwood is like, politically, Eastwood is very difficult to make sense of, because like, without getting into spoilers, like, $1 Million Baby is arguably a pro euthanasia movie. It's very Dirty Harry. Yeah, Dirty Harry is like a pro vigilante movie, but then like Magnum Force is an anti vigilante movie. Unforgiven is like, the worst thing I ever did was become a cowboy. Like there's a real, like, you watch, is it David Sims on like Blank Check or at The Atlantic, like, wrote about how like there are 2 genres of Eastwood movies. The first of which is they're railroading him, which is like the classic Richard Jewell or like the Changeling or Sully movies, which are like his libertarian, like small government kind of movies. But the other kind of movies he makes are the I'm a bad dad, take me to jail movies, where he always has a daughter, never a son. Keep in mind, Eastwood has 2 sons. But never in these movies is he a bad dad to his sons. It's always his daughters. Like, he will make movies where like he will be a father who is like the best criminal in the world, the best thief in the world, the best drug smuggler in the world, the best coach in the world. The best like racist grandpa in the world, but it will always be like, no, I failed my children and therefore I deserve to either go to prison or die at the end of this movie, which is just a really fascinating angle for somebody of that age. And you'll ask him, Clint, you make a lot of movies about fathers and daughters, and he's like, do I?
I don't think he knows. I think it's like The Rock going, this is my first time at Carl's Jr. And it's like, no, this is your 3rd time. Is it?
Absolutely. Let's see here. SBS Guru 2000, thank you for the YouTube tip. Says, other than Japanese teenagers using the power of friendship, which fictional character could actually unalive the canonical Christian God? I think we answered that already. It's A24's Hugh Grant. He's gonna
Hugh Grant. Well, crazy premise. I love it. Where he's like sequesters to, I think, Jehovah's Witnesses or something. He's like, I'll let you leave, but you have to pick one of these 2 doors, belief or disbelief. And then it's like, oh, all right.
And now come into my fantasy faith house. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I think when Kevin Costner dies, right, he's going to go to heaven. And he's going to be like, God, I got some ideas here. And like, God is going to give an interview 3 months later. And he's going to say, look, the great thing about Kevin Costner being in charge of heaven is that Kevin Costner gets a God that he believes in and to work with his favorite actor. Like, I honestly believe you send Kevin Costner to heaven, he'll be running it in a week.
100%.
But he won't get the credit. He won't take the credit.
Kevin Costner is the one person who can defeat God, not through his power, but through his charisma alone, his good communication.
And nagging and like refusal to let God make the decision that Kevin Costner disagrees with.
Love it. Love it, love it. Let's see here. Cleverly Dope Lee, how you doing, buddy? Oh, it's been an age, Lee. We got to get you back on
We do have to
because
get
we
back on.
always loved talking to you. Love the show, guys. Just want to recommend Bound, 1996, to anyone who hasn't seen it. One of the Wachowskis' best films. Bound is one of those movies where once you find a director you like, you get to go back and see what they did before they broke big. And Bound is like, oh my God, we should have known. I get someone knew, right? Because like after that,
The Matrix, like Warner Brothers were like, come make the Matrix movie with us.
or didn't they make Assassins in between, or was that?
No, they wrote the script for Assassins and disowned it.
That's what it was.
Yeah. To be not the masterpiece that is Assassins, mostly known today for the
Yes.
that is
For
the
the
lasting
GIF, of course.
legacy of like Assassins as a movie.
But 100% agree with you, Lee. Bound is just it almost feels like a hidden gem. It's all of that like proto Wachowski, weirdness and horniness. Oh, it's beautiful.
And it's on
Beautiful.
Criterion now. It recently got a Criterion release, if I remember correctly.
Oh, did it?
I think so, and it's great to see.
Oh, great to see. Great recommendation.
And really great stealth sequel in the second season of Chucky as well.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Let's see here. And finally, we have Double Finger who says, wait, so you're telling me method acting is not terrorizing your colleagues by being a weirdo and sending them used condoms and other filth?
Nope, hasn't gotten me a movie deal
Shockingly,
yet.
my partner who studied drama and like theater and acting was understandably upset every time they would hear the words method acting associated to what they described as like light assault. Yeah. Harassment.
I think like that's the, that's the one
Depends
thing
on the
where it's like,
character.
it depends on the character. Like, what if it's funny because you never hear about people like terror, like, or going full method when their character is a good guy.
Yeah.
I mean, was not the joke that like Tom Hanks has been like preparing to play Mr. Rogers for his entire career. So now that he's done it, we should all be very aware, very
right.
Yeah,
He went full method for Mr. Rogers.
Oh, how nice! Imagine that he ran you over with a bike because he was method acting. So you play a priest. What are you doing?
But like that's the thing where it's like, how much of this is like you getting into character, and how much of this is you like thinking, oh, I can get away with the bullshit I want to do now,
justifying being a terrible human being
Absolutely.
for your art.
So, keep it in yourself. Like,
I want to shout out. John Lee
Ledger.
mentioned Tom Hanks played the Colonel and he was bad. I mean, the Colonel was was basically Satan. There's a moment in like Baz Luhrmann's Elvis where Tom Hanks takes Elvis up the top of a carousel like he's Satan tempting Jesus in the desert. But like, I also want to shout out the Wachowskis. We mentioned them a moment ago, but Cloud Atlas, where like Tom Hanks plays 6 of the like ugliest human beings you have ever seen. Another great Hugh Grant performance as well.
Can we not shout out Cloud Atlas? What a mess!
Okay, well, up I accepting the yellow face stuff that should never have happened. I am quite fond of Cloud Atlas. I have, but yeah, that never should have happened. Yeah.
Just
I love Cloud Atlas, but that's.
I mean, the book that it is based off, also equally a mess.
Unadaptable.
Just unadaptable.
So,
a wonderful book, wonderful romp, unadaptable, but geez, what a like. If we're gonna shout out Wachowskis for anything that they deserve, it's Speed Racer all the time, 100%. I love Speed Racer.
Speed Racer is great.
Unappreciated.
I'm quite fond of most of them. I think Jupiter Ascending is the one I would have difficulty making a case for. Like, I love the Wachowskis, but even Jupiter Ascending, where like Mila Kunis is like, "What if a dog was hot Channing Tatum?" And I'm like, I don't know if I can go there with you.
We can't go that far.
Well,
What? Yeah, that's Cloud Atlas, or that's a Jupiter Ascending.
That's a Jupiter Ascending. It's like, what if Channing Tatum was a sexy dog?
So okay, here's my segue. Speed Racer is wonderful, kind of schlocky, a basic action movie, much like Twisters, which is a nice
back around. Yeah,
like Twisters is a nice, simple action movie. You know what's going on. They're fighting tornadoes. What a beautiful movie. What a beautiful movie.
It's also slightly like post 9/11 Twisters as well. Like the original Twister is like part of that wave of 90s. Like I love that, like, Frost is like, I'm gonna need you to explain that, Darren, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna elaborate on that. But like, the original Twister is like that 90s wave of like act of God movies. So like Titanic is like an iceberg will sink us. Dante's Peak, Volcano, Deep Impact, Armageddon. Like if civilization is going to be destroyed in the 90s, it's going to be destroyed by a natural disaster. You know, tornadoes, acts of God, things we can't control, right? And what's interesting about Twisters is Twisters kind of has that, where they have this whole big thing of like how it's part religion and part science. And there's a big moment at the end where one character riding into a Twister takes their hands off the steering wheel and kind of puts their hands on their knees because they're accepting their fate and destiny, the universe, all that sort of stuff. There are moments where characters pray as the tornado passes over them. Like, it is something this movie is very conscious of. But also, this is a movie where Glenn Powell entirely seriously utters the line, and I can shoot missiles at it when it comes to a tornado. It's like a movie about like fighting tornadoes. They use military grade radar to model Twisters. Like Have on the phone is like, aren't you tired of these Twisters coming for the people we love? And it's like, that is a very strange way to talk about weather patterns, Javi, but I accept that you're into it. Javi is, of course, a former military veteran who has like come back and been radicalized. And like the whole big thing is, yes, we can preemptively stop Twisters. We can get in there. We have a dossier. It proves that Twisters are ready to launch weapons of mass destruction in 30 minutes on civilian populations. And we can preemptively get in there and deploy these weapons and deal with, we're going to drone strike them at one point. Like they're like watching it, there was something just a little bit like post like 9/11 War on Terror. Like, can we take the fight to the Twisters in this movie?
The cowboy way too. Like, if you fear it, ride it.
Hell yeah.
Which definitely had sexual connotation, intonations there. I was very speaking to the whole Gen Z is tired of sex on screen. This was a very like hot and bothersome film through and through. Like them together in the truck, and then just boom, just a big old tornado over the two of them. What's happening? It's like, you'll be fine. You'll be okay.
But no kissing, crucially. They cut the
no kissing. This would have fit through the Hays Code, while implying that they boned a lot.
Sure.
But it was Spielberg who insisted on they cut the kiss, which is interesting.
I think it works better that way. I'll be honest with you. Like, obviously, like, you know, we again, there's no spoiling Twisters, because if you've ever seen a movie before, you know exactly what's going to happen in Twisters. But you know, like, I think
there's more than one Twister.
There's more than one Twister.
Another tower or Twister.
While I am all for horniness in movies, I think this is a movie that genuinely did not need a makeout scene, or did not need, you know, like any more horniness to it, because it's at the end of the day, it's about the Twisters.
Yeah. It's about the twisting, and also he's got, like, you know, the sexual appeal of like a Ken doll in this. That's
Maybe, I mean, maybe that's why I'm so into him, because I'm not thinking about that part of him.
He's not a sexual threat.
He's not a sexual.
This is maybe the first time that anybody's described like Glenn Powell as not a sexual threat.
Right?
Like,
I think I don't know if there's a correlation with like old stars and, you know, how they get sexualized and whatnot. I feel that less nowadays as well. Like even the younger ones of the time, you know, always sexualized in some way or other. Whereas nowadays with Timothy Chalamet, I saw him at a club and he might have been tweaking on cocaine, and I was like, I don't see that in you. You come off as a church boy to me. That's wild. Whereas you see old pictures of like Sarah Jessica Parker and Robert Downey Jr. and they're in a club, and you know what's going on in these places, right? And you're like, yeah, it makes sense, I guess. Tweaked out of your mind, sweating like crazy. Whereas we have almost like very golden boys coming through.
Again, like, this is the social media age. Yeah,
exactly.
Like you're curating your Instagram. Your image is like you have social media, so you're theoretically closer to these people than you've ever been. But they have like teams of interns whose job it is to make sure that curated image is pristine, as you said. You know, which is interesting. And again, I do think Frost is entirely correct. Like, some of that is down to the fact that we know that like bad things have happened on set while filming sex scenes. We're a lot more anxious about sexuality in general in culture. Like, Me Too is a very understandable reaction that we've had. And I do think like the lack of sex on screen is a response to that, because it's like we don't want to remind people of like other famous people having sex in situations that they know were deeply uncomfortable. So let's just not bring that up. And there is also, I suspect, an element of like, it needs to be PG-13, and we need to be able to sell this overseas to foreign markets, which are much more restrictive as well. Like I think it is like a tornado. It's a perfect weather system. You know, there are multiple factors. You know, it's like
All right, we got one more super chat here that we're going to get to, which is Snake in the Garden. Darren, thoughts on the cast for Thursday? Thoughts on the cast for Thursday Murder Club?
This is the Richard Osman book, which is being adapted by Chris Columbus, which is a very interesting choice. I like Columbus, broadly speaking. I don't think he's amazing, but I believe it stars Helen Mirren, Pierce Brosnan, and there it is right there, and Ben Kingsley as well. I think just great, just a whole bunch of actors that I think it would be cool to spend time with. And when you're making a murder mystery, that's a large part of the appeal. Like a large part of the appeal of the murder mystery is you're going to be spending 2 hours with these actors, not sure if you can trust them, not sure if you should trust them. And so having actors who you like and having actors who you know are charismatic is a large part of that. So Pierce Brosnan, who I'm in the tank for Brosnan, and I will admit part of that is like maybe patriotic pride, but I honestly do love Brosnan. Have you seen the photos of him at Wimbledon, where he looks more like Bond now than he did in the 1990s, which is insane. No man should be allowed to be that handsome. But yeah, I am very, very much looking forward to this.
Keep your Glenn Powells. We got Pierce Brosnan.
I mean, okay, counter pitch, right? Imagine Twisters if the country music starts blaring, the trucks start coming in, we cut, the door opens, cowboy hat emerges out, and it's Silver Fox Pierce Brosnan.
Oh. He's not
now,
American.
Is he doing his French accent from Nomads?
Oh, no.
That is the question. Is he singing ABBA like in Mamma Mia?
We can only hope. We can only hope.
As cowboy propaganda is what this was.
Oh, dang.
Through and through. And it's, because the Southern is a state of mind here. Absolutely. And they blended it from all over the place. Luke Combs, who's out here singing, ain't no love in Oklahoma, from North Carolina. A completely different demographic, completely different styles, but we're just going to blend them all together and appeal to it.
But like Lee Isaac Chung, who's the director, grew up in Arkansas, right? And that's why the Tyler character, who's played by Glenn Powell, is from Arkansas. And like to the point of like movie star energy, which we mentioned, like I think it's notable that like Powell is the second lead of the movie. But the movie is just like flat out of the gate. It's like, here's Daisy Edgar Jones, here's Anthony Ramos, you know them, you like them. And it's like, just so we're clear, when Powell enters, the movie's going to blare country music. We're going to cut to a wide shot. We're going to have the trucks roar in, and we're going to declare this guy as a movie. Like, sure, you've got Daisy Edgar Jones. She seems like a nice young woman. Anthony Ramos is very charming. You liked him in Hamilton. But, like, we got a fucking movie star.
Well,
and he's from Arkansas. Like me, Lee Isaac Chung. Sorry.
But again, blaring Oklahoma. This is like if you want a very Irish movie and you got like the Scottish national anthem playing. It's like back when for the longest time, if you see a brown Spanish speaking person, they're just Mexican. You know, it's like no, there's Puerto Ricans, there's Dominican, there's so many Spanish speaking countries. And that's what kind of happened here, is this weird blend where being from here, being raised around it goes through these multiple layers of like, this is so inauthentic, and then it goes back to being authentic. And then in the end, it's like, fuck it, we're all American here.
I love that like there's a level of inauthenticity you can reach where it just kind of doubles back and you're like, fair enough.
Because so much of the Southern identity is aesthetic. It's just raw aesthetic. At first, it's almost like in Civil War, you know, what kind of Southern are you? What kind? And in the end, fuck it, you know, I never thought I'd fight with an elf.
Yeah. We'll have a very similar conversation, but on the other side when we talk about Kneecap, Darren. So
Kneecap. Are you guys know what Kneecap is? That's incredible.
Okay, by the way, so I saw Twisters in at my local art house theater, and the trailer for Kneecap played before, and I was like, oh, I'm down for this.
Patriotic pride. It's paint the tricolor on my face. It's like
absolutely
amazing.
Oh, wow.
For those who don't know, Kneecap is a movie about just not to throw that out for everyone. Now, hopefully, I'm not bastardizing this based off of the trailer, but Kneecap at the heart of it seems to be a movie about preserving the Irish language. But wrapped around a Belfast hip hop trio.
Yes, that is probably where I would lead with. It's an Irish hip hop trio. I love that you make it sound like it's like some sort of prestige-y, like Kenneth Branagh-esque, like black and white drama about the preservation of like Irish culture and heritage. But yes, it is about a hip hop trio from Belfast.
But is it about
starring?
Starring who? Oh, I don't know. I just saw the trailer.
Michael Fassbender, which is like one of the most incredible gets, because like Kneecap are like they are a hip hop trio in Ireland, but it's like Michael Fassbender is an internationally recognized Irish star. It's like that is the thing that for Irish audiences was like a huge surprise. It would be like it'd be like Kevin Costner turning up an 8 Mile would be kind of, I guess, what the equivalent would be.
Imagine. Wow.
Yeah. All right. So that's going to be it for this week's episode of the Rewind podcast. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I think this was a lovely discussion, not only on Twisters, but on movie stars as general. As a general reminder, everybody, if you like this kind of thing, the best way to make sure it keeps happening is to head over to our Patreon and give us money every month. And if you give us enough money every month, you get to read Darren's articles that are released almost exclusively on our Patreon. So that's, by the way, one of the best reasons to be a Patreon subscriber of ours is Darren's articles. There's all of our things. Let's see here. Anything else we want to not talk about, but just promote, shout out before we wrap up? Darren.
Not really. Last week, the wonderful Omar Ahmed did a fantastic edit on an episode of The Backdrop looking at the boys, which I am very proud of. I'm always like stunned when I like record a script, give it to Omar or Jesse or anybody who's editing it, and it comes back and it is just so much better than it is when it leaves my mouth. It's just a delight. It's wonderful. And next week there will be one covering it'll be covering Deadpool and Wolverine, but it'll be covering like Disney and its relationship to the Fox IP. And I'm quite excited for you guys to see that. So that'll be next week's episode.
Wonderful, wonderful. Frost, what do you got?
What I got, let's see, Cold Take just come out last Monday. And then speaking of over pretentious, over analyzing of just any sort of thing, made a video on my channel that was that'd be youtube.com/theotherfrost, designing humor in Dark Souls. How I don't think any of the other Souls likes that try to hit in that genre get the humor down. And I think that's a very important part of it all.
Very fun.
I've never played Dead Souls and I loved it. I loved the video, like particularly with the thing and I'm sorry.
There you go. Look at that. It's accessible. And then we'll be streaming at 7 p.m. I believe, 7 p.m. CT with Will. We're going to be finishing up A Way Out. We are finally making it out of prison, I believe.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye.